An illuminated high-rise apartment building stands against the dark city sky under a mysterious night.
A safe door opens, revealing stacks of cash hidden deep within the dark office furniture.
Lee Eun-jo confirms the password is correct, admitting she previously suspected the combination while searching the safe.
As she manipulates the dial, Lee Eun-jo realizes the password is a combination of Kim Na-in's birthday and their first anniversary, then refocuses on finding evidence. Lee Eun-jo intends to exploit the affair between Kang Jin-woo and Kim Na-in while they believe she is drugged and sleeping. Her hands tremble slightly as she carefully sifts through various documents and files stored inside the dark safe.
She questions if she has finally found the specific item she was searching for in the dark. Lee Eun-jo finds the gold-covered document mentioned by Secretary Jo and the leather case containing the crucial SD card. A passing car highlights her thought that the secret safe holds the real will and recorded footage of the accident scene. In a car, Lee Eun-jo asks Secretary Jo if the evidence was discarded, but he disagrees with her. Secretary Jo explains that Kang Jin-woo's paranoid personality would prevent him from letting such sensitive items leave his possession.
Lee Eun-jo kneels by the safe, clutching a folder and vowing to prove the injustice surrounding her father's tragic death.
She pauses for a moment of quiet introspection while reflecting on the weight of the evidence she now holds. A looming figure interrupts the silence, mockingly asking if there is a burglar present in the dark room. Kim Na-in questions what Lee Eun-jo is doing sneaking around and asks why she is there in such a state. Kim Na-in stands mockingly in the doorway, dressed in a dark slip and watching Lee Eun-jo with a smug expression. Shock and betrayal cross Lee Eun-jo's face as she realizes Kim Na-in has caught her in the act of searching. Another person approaches the room, calling out Lee Eun-jo's name as they step closer to the tense confrontation. Kang Jin-woo joins Kim Na-in, mocking Lee Eun-jo for her activities after an expensive meal while she shouts his name.
Lee Eun-jo recoils in fear, warning them that heaven will punish them for betraying her father's deep trust in them.
A memory reveals Lee Won-gyu as a pioneer white hacker and the founder of the prominent company CX Soft. The flashback shows Lee Won-gyu was a devoted father-in-law who deeply cherished Kang Jin-woo as his own daughter's husband. Back in the present, Lee Eun-jo mentions her father, prompting Kang Jin-woo to claim he fulfilled his duties toward the man. Kang Jin-woo complains about catering to the old man's moods and traveling across the country to satisfy his various whims. Lee Eun-jo retorts that his devotion was merely a superficial act that nearly fooled her into trusting his intentions. She realizes with bitter clarity that his entire persona of being a loyal son-in-law was a complete lie.
A memory shows Kang Jin-woo stealing the father's seal to commit crimes while the old man chose to turn a blind eye.
Kang Jin-woo challenges her for evidence of his crimes, and Lee Eun-jo confirms she has it while revealing her awareness of his affair. Lee Eun-jo accuses him of causing her father's death, forging the will, and creating slush funds with the company's money. She recalls being drugged with psychiatric medication to keep her in a daze after witnessing her father's traumatic accident. Looking at a pill bottle, Lee Eun-jo reveals she was never fooled and only pretended to be under the drug's influence. Lee Eun-jo warns that Secretary Jo will take the evidence to the prosecution even if she does not survive the night. She explains that if she fails to exit, Secretary Jo will proceed to file a complaint using substantial circumstantial evidence. Kang Jin-woo remains silent as she reveals her smartwatch is recording their conversation and transmitting audio directly to an online drive. Lee Eun-jo screams that his time is up, labeling him a murderer as she stands her ground against the two traitors. Kang Jin-woo smirks and mockingly calls her pitiful Lee Eun-jo as he prepares to reveal his own hand in the situation. Her eyes widen in sudden terror as she realizes the situation is not unfolding according to her carefully laid plan. Kang Jin-woo tells her to listen carefully as he prepares to deliver 3 chilling points of information to her. Kang Jin-woo and Kim Na-in stand together in a show of unified defiance against Lee Eun-jo's desperate attempts at justice. Kang Jin-woo steps forward, declaring that Lee Eun-jo will not leave the room alive as he delivers his first point. As he takes a syringe from Kim Na-in, Kang Jin-woo reveals that Secretary Jo will not be going to the prosecution.
He closes the distance between them, his bare feet moving steadily across the floor toward the defenseless and trapped woman.
Kang Jin-woo informs her that all the evidence she worked so hard to gather has already been permanently erased from existence. Lee Eun-jo's face contorts in pure horror as she frantically asks what they have done to Secretary Jo and her evidence. The atmosphere grows even darker as Kang Jin-woo prepares to deliver his third and final revelation to the terrified woman. He violently seizes Lee Eun-jo's arm, trapping her against the office furniture as she struggles to escape his powerful grasp. A cold and sinister smile plays across Kang Jin-woo's face as he looms over her, enjoying the sight of her total despair. He moves the needle closer to her neck, intending to silence her forever with the same drugs he used before. A final, silent cry of desperation escapes her as the darkness begins to close in on her once again. Lee Eun-jo collapses as the drug takes hold, unable to move while Kang Jin-woo carries her unconscious body out onto the balcony. Kang Jin-woo stands over the unconscious Lee Eun-jo, planning to frame her death as a suicide driven by depression from her apartment balcony. He carries her toward the edge, reiterating his plan to turn her into a tragic figure who jumped from the 46th floor. Kang Jin-woo bids a final, mocking goodbye to Lee Eun-jo as she is cast out into the dark city night.
Her feet and legs are shown in a blurred close-up as she plummets toward the ground at high speed.
Falling toward the street, she desperately calls out for her father and anyone who might be able to save her life.
Fear and desperation consume her as she closes her eyes and pleads for salvation one last time before the impact.
She questions what is happening as her descent continues, suddenly noticing a strange phenomenon appearing in the air around her.
A mysterious digital interface appears mid-air, asking if she wishes to intervene in her fate with a simple yes or no. Overwhelmed by the life or death choice, she panics and wonders which option she is supposed to select in her final moments. She realizes the end is near as the city street looms closer, feeling a final sense of resignation and despair.
Despite her confusion, she decides there is no reason to hesitate and mentally accepts the offer to change her destiny.
A glowing confirmation screen pulses with energy as she chooses to fight for her life through the system's intervention. Time seems to stand still over the busy intersection as the mysterious power begins to rewrite her tragic ending. The scene shifts to a bright morning where a meeting regarding an investment in CX Soft is about to commence. At MK Investment, executives discuss the rehabilitation request from CX Soft and the company's current precarious financial structure. CEO Park reviews the investment documents with a serious expression, unaware of the tragedy that has struck his acquaintance. An assistant enters the boardroom, urgently informing CEO Park that there is critical news he needs to see immediately. The aide clarifies that the news involves the CX heiress Lee Eun-jo, who is CEO Park's longtime acquaintance. A dark announcement reveals that Lee Eun-jo has committed suicide, sending a shockwave of silence through the office. CEO Park stares at the news report in stunned silence, struggling to process the claim that Lee Eun-jo took her own life. He remains paralyzed by the news, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of shock and internal turmoil. An aide uses a remote to turn up the volume on the television for the gathered staff to hear. The news anchor reports that Lee Eun-jo was found deceased early this morning after falling from her high-rise residence. Background details explain she was 34, suffered from depression, and was the wife of Vice Chairman Kang Jin-woo. CEO Park stands up abruptly as the report mentions the couple had no children, signaling the end of her bloodline. He commands his team to put the CX investment case on hold until they can gather more information. The scene transitions to a drowning sensation where a hand reaches upward, gasping for air in the suffocating water. A blonde woman suddenly emerges from the bathtub water, coughing and spluttering as she regains her ability to breathe. Water drips slowly from the faucet into the tub as she struggles to recover from the near-death experience. She looks around the bathroom in total confusion, realizing she is in a strange place that is not her home. She notices she is wearing wet floral clothes that she has no memory of ever owning or purchasing herself. Feeling disoriented and mentally foggy, she carefully steps out of the bathtub and onto the tiled bathroom floor. Staring into the mirror, she lets out a blood-curdling scream at the sight of a completely unfamiliar woman's face. The quiet and desolate entrance of the apartment is shown, contrasting with the sheer panic unfolding in the bathroom. She stands by the door, trembling and gasping as she questions the impossible reflection she just witnessed in the mirror. She looks back at the sink, demanding to know whose face is in the mirror and who this person is. Panic reaches a fever pitch as she screams at the reflection, unable to recognize the beautiful blonde woman staring back.
A blue status window appears, identifying her as Na Eun-jo, a 28-year-old professional model.
She reacts with total disbelief to the system's claim about her new name, age, and professional identity. The interface explains that Na Eun-jo died 30 seconds before she did, and her soul was immediately transferred into this body. She questions the idea of being transferred, struggling to make sense of the illogical and supernatural explanation provided. Looking down at her new, slender hands, she remains skeptical of the reality of this impossible situation. She pinches her cheek in a desperate attempt to wake up from what she hopes is just a dream. The reflection speaks again, identifying itself as a guide meant to help her navigate her new life and destiny. The system compares itself to the Navi AI system her father, Chairman Lee Won-gyu, used in his secret projects. She stares intently at the mirror as she processes the shocking connection between the guide and her late father. The interface clarifies its identity and invites her to call it Navi, just like her father's original assistance program. She recalls that her father was developing an advanced chatbot for personal assistance before his tragic and untimely death.
Memories of her father's experimental testing phase at the computer reappear as she tries to connect the past and present.
She asks Navi if its role is truly to help her intervene in and successfully change her tragic fate. The system confirms her new identity, declaring she must now live as Na Eun-jo.
The blonde woman stares in bewilderment, asking about the fate of her original body.
At a chaotic scene, police officers maintain a perimeter while commanding the crowd to stay back. Bystanders gossip about the tragedy, speculating that the woman committed suicide as the blonde woman watches. Her eye widens in absolute shock as she observes the aftermath of her own death. A thought bubble expresses visceral horror at the sight of a bloodied hand on the pavement. Kang Jin-woo puts on a dramatic display of grief for the onlookers while calling out her name. The gray-haired man cries out in theatrical despair, questioning how he can survive without his wife.
A sharp internal realization condemns the man as a truly disgusting individual for his deceitful performance.
From the crowd, the blonde woman glares at her husband with an expression of pure, cold hatred. The title appears over a dark, ink-splattered background, signaling a shift in the unfolding narrative. A sleek black car sits parked outside a modern building as the day's somber business continues. Park Joo-hyun sits in the car, struggling to believe the news of Lee Eun-jo's sudden suicide.
He reflects on the past, noting that memories from 11 years ago remain incredibly vivid.
He recalls a young woman with long dark hair reaching for a book on a high shelf. A helping hand reaches out to assist her with the book she was trying to retrieve. The young woman looks back with a soft, surprised expression as someone intervenes to help her.
A young Park Joo-hyun helps her, prompting her to ask if he is his father's guest. She introduces herself with a gentle smile, identifying herself to the young man as Lee Eun-jo.
Returning to the present, an assistant informs Park Joo-hyun that they have arrived at the funeral hall.
Park Joo-hyun enters the room, standing solemnly before the floral arrangements and memorial incense. A framed photograph of Lee Eun-jo stands at the center of the memorial, surrounded by white lilies.
Looking at her portrait, Park Joo-hyun thinks she was never the type to take her own life. As he offers a flower, he reflects that chrysanthemums never suited a woman of her vibrant character.
An aide introduces CEO Park Joo-hyun to the vice chairman, who is currently acting as chief mourner. Kang Jin-woo is visibly taken aback by the sudden appearance of the high-profile CEO at the service. The vice chairman questions his presence, and Park Joo-hyun explains he was an acquaintance of the deceased. Park Joo-hyun reveals a more personal connection, mentioning he once took art lessons from the late woman. Kang Jin-woo awkwardly refers to her as his wife while praising her reputation as a renowned artist. Park Joo-hyun turns away, mentally dismissing the widower's fake sentiment as nothing more than offensive nonsense.
A final formal message of condolences is delivered as the CEO prepares to depart the funeral.
Park Joo-hyun walks away from the building, his face set in a grim expression of deep dissatisfaction.
Recalling their wedding, he thinks Kang should have been grateful for a wife so far above him.
He judges the man for his vulgarity, finding it offensive that he stands as the chief mourner. Outside, Park Joo-hyun vents his frustration, cursing the man under his breath while rubbing his head. His gaze sharpens with suspicion and contempt as he dwells on the suspicious nature of her death. He suddenly stops, spotting a familiar blonde woman standing alone nearby in a floral dress. He internally questions the identity of the woman, recognizing her as a professional model. The blonde woman stands in the sunlight, looking pensive and unaware of the man watching her nearby.
Park Joo-hyun approaches, identifying her as Na Eun-jo, a model under the representation of Hera Entertainment.
He asks if she is feeling unwell, but the woman only looks at him in total confusion.
The black-haired man maintains a steady, scrutinizing gaze as he waits for her to react to him.
Her eyes show a flicker of uncertainty as she tries to place the identity of the man. Recognition hits her as she realizes the man standing before her is none other than Park Joo-hyun. A small, confused representation of the man wonders why the conversation has taken such an odd turn. Park Joo-hyun chides her for the lack of respect, reminding her that he is an agency investor. A sudden mental realization strikes the woman, reminding her that she is no longer Lee Eun-jo. She panics internally, struggling to find the right words before asking what he is doing there. He asks if she is there for him, mentioning that their previous discussion had already concluded. The blonde woman is left wondering what exactly transpired between Na Eun-jo and the man before her. Park Joo-hyun warns the blonde woman that he will take action if she continues her current behavior. The blonde woman smiles faintly, claiming that she actually knew the woman who passed away. Against a clear blue sky, the woman reiterates that she was personally acquainted with the deceased heiress. Standing in her floral dress, Na Eun-jo maintains a steady gaze as she reveals this unexpected connection. Park Joo-hyun questions her with disbelief, asking how she could possibly have known Lee Eun-jo. A sudden, mournful cry for the late Eun-jo echoes through the air from a nearby location. Park Joo-hyun turns his attention toward a distressed red-haired woman being comforted outside the funeral hall. The weeping woman's voice cracks as she asks what they will do without their dear friend. Na Eun-jo's eyes narrow with an intense, burning hatred as she watches the scene unfolding nearby. Park Joo-hyun observes her from the side, mentally questioning the strange and unsettling expression on her face. Stepping forward in her sneakers, the blonde woman abruptly announces that she is leaving the area. Park Joo-hyun watches in silence as she turns her back and walks away without another word. Narrative details describe Na Eun-jo as a beautiful model and troublemaker under the agency Hera Entertainment. Screen captures show various headlines in viral videos documenting the model's frequent scandals and verbal slips. A flashback reveals a lavish party held to celebrate the investment deal with her entertainment agency. Park Joo-hyun recalls an incident where a rookie model he didn't know caused a sudden scene. At the Hera Entertainment office, a manager demands that Na Eun-jo apologize to the CEO immediately. Na Eun-jo flippantly apologizes, admitting she was only checking the handsome CEO out of curiosity. Although her stage name is Navi, her rebellious attitude seems poorly suited to her real name. Park Joo-hyun looks down at her with disdain, thinking it is a waste of a beautiful name. The image contrasts the vibrant blonde model with the elegant, dark-haired woman he once knew. The name of the deceased heiress, Lee Eun-jo, appears in a soft, glowing font against darkness.
Na Eun-jo smiles radiantly, her golden hair catching the light as she exerts her youthful charm.
Park Ju-hyun reflects that he only agreed to drink with her because of the name he missed. He addresses her formally as Miss Na Eun-jo while they sit together in a dimly lit bar.
As she smiles over her wine, the name of his former acquaintance echoes repeatedly in his mind.
A close-up shows the model sipping red wine, her expression obscured as the memory persists. Memories of a shared night in a hotel room surface, filled with soft sighs and whispered names. The name Eun-jo is repeated in floating text, haunting the silence of the dark, empty panels. Park Ju-hyun appears breathless and sweating, his dark hair disheveled following the intense and regrettable encounter.
He wonders if his actions were driven by the desire to finally speak that name aloud.
The blonde model looks up with a blush, her golden eyes wide and full of expectation. A vision of the dark-haired Lee Eun-jo appears, her calm expression contrasting with the current reality.
Two hands are shown intertwined against a dark background, signifying a moment of deep physical connection.
The exterior of a luxury high-rise building shines brightly against the night sky of the city.
Bare feet step across the polished wooden floor of the apartment as a new day begins.
Na Eun-jo demands money to silence a reporter while Park Ju-hyun finishes dressing in the background. She smiles while drying her hair, claiming he is the only person she can ask for funds.
When he asks what happens if he refuses, she threatens to leak details about their private night. Disgust fills Park Ju-hyun as he realizes any affection he felt for her has completely withered away.
Sitting in his car, he regrets ever thinking he should take responsibility for a woman like her.
He remains convinced that there is no logical way a person like her knew the real Eun-jo.
He asked his driver if he is familiar with the model, seeking more information about her background.
The driver explains that she was actually spotted at the location where the tragedy occurred earlier.
Park Ju-hyun looks shocked as the driver hands him a tablet to view a specific news article. The screen shows a photo of the crowd at the death scene, with Na Eun-jo clearly visible.
He stares at the image of the crying model, wondering why she would be so visibly upset.
He realizes she was at the scene long before the victim's official identity had been confirmed. The sleek black car continues down the road as Park Ju-hyun addresses the man by his name.
He orders Kim Gyo to investigate Na Eun-jo's potential connection to the late Lee Eun-jo immediately.
Park Ju-hyun reflects on a woman he spent one night with 3 months ago.
He feels a sudden need to know Na Eun-jo's exact relationship with Lee Eun-jo.
Na Eun-jo asks the entity Nabi if she should live as herself and interfere with fate.
Na Eun-jo stares at a blue holographic screen while sitting on a park bench.
The screen confirms her wish to change fate while she questions why this transmigration happened. A cryptic message appears, suggesting that a desperate longing reached through to cause this event.
Na Eun-jo dismisses the vague answer, finding the act of entering a dying body nonsensical.
She pities the original woman's suicide but recognizes this as a prime opportunity for herself.
Her eyes burn with a cold intensity as she realizes this is her chance for revenge.
She plans to retrieve evidence from Treufel and asks if accessing the host's memories is possible. A prompt appears regarding the requirement to have Na Eun-jo's memories for her plan.
A glowing silhouette of the model stands against a dark cosmic background.
The blue holographic screen confirms to her that accessing the memories is not impossible.
The system notes the difficulty of peeking into the life of someone who chose suicide.
Na Eun-jo looks ahead with a determined expression, ready to face the past.
She wonders if Park Ju-hyun will appear within the fragmented memories she is about to access. The system grants her access to 1 year of memories and asks for her final confirmation.
Without hesitation, the blonde woman agrees to view the memories of her current body.
Shimmering blue butterflies flutter through a dark room as the first memory begins to unfold.
Ju-han sleeps fitfully as someone calls his name amidst a vision of a building fire.
A dark-haired woman smiles warmly through butterflies while whispering his name. A duffel bag lies open, revealing stacks of 50,000 won bills spilling out.
Ju-han bolts upright in bed, gasping for air as he wakes from a vivid nightmare.
He laments that everything has become meaningless as he tries to recover from the dream.
Mournful cries for Lee Eun-jo echo through the autumn air as the funeral procession moves forward.
The red-haired woman wails in grief as the portrait of the deceased is carried through the crowd. Park Ju-hyun watches the scene with a hardened expression, his eyes narrowed in deep suspicion.
He stares at Kang Jinwoo, identifying the man standing at the center of the somber event.
He internally mocks the man, labeling him a pathetic failure for not protecting his wife.
Ju-han spots a woman in funeral attire and wonders if she is indeed Na Eun-jo.
He recognizes a familiar intensity in her eyes, noting that same sharp gaze from before. He observes the clear hostility and contempt radiating from her as she watches the other mourners.
He questions what possible link the scandalous model could have with Lee Eun-jo's inner circle.
Na Eun-jo turns to leave, her hand gripping her bag tightly as she makes a quick exit.
Ju-han's eye narrows with renewed suspicion as he continues to observe the blonde woman.
Blue butterflies fly around the legs of a woman as she walks through a bright space.
Two women walk away side by side toward a bright light, leaving a trail of white flowers.
The scene shifts to a bathroom door as a voice confirms something over the phone.
Inside the restroom, the red-haired woman tells someone that Lee Eun-jo's assets now belong to her husband.
Applying lipstick, she confirms on her phone that the wedding will happen, but not just yet.
She gleefully plots to comfort her partner after they mourn before they eventually fall in love.
Washing her hands, she dismisses potential criticism, claiming she can handle her grandfather's disapproval. She exits the stall while suggesting that she and her partner should register their marriage first.
The sound of footsteps echoes as the red-haired woman leaves the restroom, unaware of being overheard.
Na Eun-jo hears the plan to register the marriage first and questions it internally.
Her expression is cold as she determines that she will never let that marriage happen. She walks past vibrant yellow ginkgo trees, her mind focused on her next calculated move. She reflects on the trauma of seeing her own body and following it to the crematorium.
Vowing revenge, she calls them a killer couple and decides to walk and clear her head.
A sleek black car tire sits parked as the sun shines down on the funeral grounds.
A sleek black car waits under bright yellow trees as Na Eun-jo stands on the sidewalk. The black-haired man inside the car asks if the blonde woman is heading home.
Na Eun-jo looks back at the car with a puzzled and questioning expression.
Recognizing the man as Park Joo-han, she stares as the car window rolls down.
She recalls his ties to her and her father, expecting him at the funeral hall.
Her thoughts continue as she watches him, noting he followed the procession to the crematorium. A flashback shows a man and woman dancing together amidst a backdrop of soft flowers.
The memory of their first kiss and love surfaces, followed by a sense of finality.
The scene shifts to a suitcase and departing feet, marking the end of that chapter. She reflects on how their relationship ended when he left to study abroad.
Na Eun-jo focuses on the lingering image of Park Joo-han within her current host's memories.
Joo-han mentions the long tunnel ahead while Eun-jo reacts with confusion to his sudden presence. He offers her a ride, stating the walk through the tunnel is too far.
The blonde woman stands in silence, weighing her options against the backdrop of falling leaves.
A memory of Joo-yeon warning about potential investment losses for Hera Entertainment flickers by.
In a flashback, he declares he cannot afford involvement in such low-grade scandals.
The original model looks bewildered by his harsh assessment of their public situation.
A thought bubble emphasizes that his every action is under constant surveillance. An elegant, dark-haired woman is shown from behind in a soft, ethereal light. Joo-han critiques his scandal partner as being rough, frivolous, and somewhat vulgar in character. The model laughs off his demand for class, questioning who he is trying to impress. Narrative details describe their disastrous first meeting and how his gaze shifted upon hearing her name.
The blonde model boldly asks if he wants to spend the night with her. He rejects the casual offer, prompting her to suggest starting with a kiss instead.
She requests to be called by her name in a friendly tone during their intimate encounter. Back in the present, Park Joo-han waits for her answer from inside the luxury car. His intense gaze remains fixed forward as the silence between them grows heavy. Na Eun-jo provocatively asks if he needs a companion tonight as he did previously.
Floating text echoes her blunt question about his need for a woman's company.
She stands firm on the sidewalk, challenging his perception of her with a sharp look. Joo-han cynically asks if she wants to proceed in the car or wants more money. As the car moves, he recalls her as a money-hungry woman willing to go anywhere. Na Eun-jo contemplates how her previous self would have reacted to his degrading offer. She flatly declines his invitation, standing her ground with a determined expression.
Dismissing him, she chooses to walk and politely tells him to drive away safely.
The car begins to pull away as she remains behind under the ginkgo trees.
Joo-han watches her through the window, his eyes narrowed with a mix of suspicion and annoyance.
He orders her to stop the unusual acting and just get into the vehicle. They sit together in the car, a tense silence filling the space as they drive. Na Eun-jo looks ahead with a thoughtful gaze, her eyes reflecting deep internal calculation. The car travels through the city as she recalls the significant location known as Treufel. Park Joo-hyun breaks the silence by abruptly questioning why she visited that specific place.
She looks at him in surprise, her thoughts revealing a conflict in how to treat him.
Feigning ignorance, she claims she isn't smart enough to understand his cryptic line of questioning. He remains focused on the road, preparing to clarify his inquiry more directly. He asks specifically why she was at Treufel at dawn on September 14th. He confronts her about being at the accident site. She nervously claims it was just exercise. When he asks if that is all, she defensively questions what else he expects. He points out the inconsistency of exercising at that hour in a dress while crying. Na Eun-jo finally asks if he is conducting a formal interrogation of her actions. Na Eun-jo expresses outrage at the accusation and his condescending attitude toward her character. Joo-han remains silent with a slight smirk as he listens to her defensive reaction.
A cold profile of the man accompanies descriptions of his arrogant and cruel nature.
Narrative reveals the original model approached Joo-han for financial help to save her career.
Lacking funds to pay off a reporter, the blonde woman feels increasingly trapped.
Desperation led her to offer Joo-han a single night together in exchange for the money. Despite the moral weight, she chose to face him with a sense of shameless resolve. After their night, she provocatively asks if he can handle the potential public fallout. Joo-han prepares to leave the bedroom, his back turned toward her in the morning light.
He leaves a check on the floor, advising her to be more perceptive if not smart.
Joo-han demeans their encounter as trivial while she reacts with shock at his cruelty.
Sitting in the car, Na Eun-jo asserts that he has no legal authority over her.
She questions his relationship with the deceased woman and condemns his current interrogative behavior.
Proclaiming her right to silence, she announces she will depart the vehicle at the destination.
The blonde woman's foot touches the pavement as she finally escapes the tense car ride. She bids him a curt farewell as the black luxury vehicle pulls away.
Joo-han watches her through the window, his silent gaze following her into the city streets.
Entering her modest apartment, she collapses against the door and exhales in pure exhaustion.
Her face reflects a deep emotional burden as she struggles with the weight of memories.
She reiterates that he has no right to question her or demand any explanations.
Joo-han asks what if the death of the other woman felt like his world ended. He questions if such profound loss would grant him the right to seek the truth.
Slumped on her floor, she dismisses his claims of heartbreak as a blatant lie.
A memory surfaces of the two of them painting together during a much happier time. She recalls how he vanished to study abroad, leaving her father to break the news. The void he left remained unfilled for 8 years amidst her ruined artistic dreams.
She eventually married another man, standing at the altar with a somber and distant expression.
A close-up of Joo-yeon emphasizes her belief that he should have stayed gone forever.
He returned as a powerful CEO, but never once attempted to reach out to her.
Na Eun-jo stands in her room, mocking his sudden claim of a world-shattering grief.
Her expression hardens with anger as she refuses to believe his manipulative words. She wonders why his eyes showed such intense longing when he mentioned the name Eun-jo.
Moving through her apartment, she questions if any part of the man is actually genuine.
She derides the idea that he might still love her, dismissing it as an impossible fantasy.
Her feet step across the room as she tries to focus on the tangible reality.
Standing alone in the kitchen, she takes a moment of silence to clear her mind.
With a renewed sense of purpose, she decides it is time to face the truth.
She turns to the laptop to begin investigating the life of the woman she replaced.
Digital files reveal the model's failed career and her status as a social outcast.
She is horrified to discover the original woman's bank account contains almost no money.
The high rent for the cramped room makes her situation feel even more hopeless.
Narrative confirms the host lived a tragic life of immediate spending and career failure.
She looks at her reflection, acknowledging the sorrowful history of the body she now inhabits. A vision of the original model walking through a lonely, crowded city street appears.
She lists her primary objectives, focusing on the vault and finding her former secretary.
The skyline glows at dusk as she plans her return to the critical location.
Retrieving the hidden SD card with evidence becomes her most urgent and dangerous priority.
She considers the risk of Kang Jin-woo and hopes her loyal secretary is still reachable.
Uncertainty about her secretary's fate plagues her as she looks toward the dark window.
She closes the laptop with a heavy sigh, ending her research for the night.
The Treufel stands tall, its high security making unauthorized entry an impossible task for her.
Back in her apartment, the blonde woman receives an unexpected call from CEO Jong So-hoon. Two men sit at an elegant bar, their backs turned as they discuss private matters.
Park Joo-han's companion asks if he is doing all right, but Joo-han retorts by questioning his appearance. The man reminds Joo-hyun that Lee Eun-jo was far from an ordinary person in his life. Joo-hyun remains silent, slowly sipping his drink while lost in his own deep, somber thoughts.
His friend suggests that Joo-han's past romantic choices were all calculated attempts to reach Eun-jo.
Joo-han feigns ignorance of his past motivations, prompting an incredulous reaction from his drinking companion.
Park Joo-hyun is revealed to be a legendary computer genius who earned billions at 20.
A flashback shows Chairman Lee Won-kyu observing Joo-han spending time with his beloved daughter, Eun-jo.
Despite his status, Joo-han suddenly left the country, a mystery his peer now urges him to forget. He slams his glass down with a sharp command to stop discussing the dead woman.
Joo-han asserts that he is not some gloomy person who clings to the memory of the deceased.
The friend asks why he refuses to investigate Na Eun-jo, prompting Joo-han to question the inquiry.
The companion points out his inconsistency, reminding Joo-han of his earlier claim to be over her.
Joo-han turns in silence, his profile sharp against the warm light of the upscale bar. Joo-han prepares to depart, adjusting his attire as the heavy conversation reaches its natural conclusion. He finally admits he must know if the woman approached him with knowledge of Lee Eun-jo. The sun sets over the quiet city neighborhood, signaling the arrival of a new evening. Na Eun-jo decides she must accept any work offered to her by the CEO to survive.
Sitting on her floor, she acknowledges the urgent need to pay her mounting rent and bills.
She views this upcoming meeting as a vital catalyst to change her current desperate situation.
She asks the digital system for a guide on people to avoid during her new endeavor. The search results reveal the name of her primary adversary, Chae Jung-hae.
Recognizing Jung-hae as a villainous figure from her memories, Eun-jo steels herself for the encounter. An elegant woman sits in a lounge discussing business with a reporter holding a camera.
Chae Jung-hae is distracted when she notices a familiar blonde model entering the building.
Na Eun-jo walks through the revolving doors with a composed and purposeful stride.
Jung-hae is taken aback by the model's relaxed expression, noting a change in her usual demeanor.
She excuses herself from the reporter, intent on confronting the woman she just spotted.
Jung-hae marches across the lobby, her expression hardening with a sense of aggressive superiority.
Na Eun-jo stops and looks back, her gaze calm as she waits for the other woman. Jung-hae is shocked that the model is staring back so boldly instead of looking away.
The actress calls out to her rudely, but Yoon-jo greets her as a senior with hidden intent.
Eun-jo mentions a trip to Bali with a specific CEO, sending Jung-hae into a visible state of shock.
Terrified of the secret being exposed, Jung-hae desperately orders the blonde woman to be quiet. Looking at the floor, Yoon-jo dryly suggests the actress should visit Bali again sometime soon.
She mockingly suggests taking her husband next time before stepping into the closing elevator. Well, that's one way to burn a bridge, and the boat it's on.
The elevator doors shut, leaving a stunned Chae Jung-hae and the reporter standing outside.
Jung-hae stands frozen in the hallway, her face contorted with a mix of fear and rage.
She rants about the audacity of a third-rate model trying to screw with her. The actress is consumed by panic, wondering how her secret about Bali could have possibly leaked. Inside the elevator, Na Eun-jo stands alone, her expression reflecting a cold sense of justice. She reflects on how unfortunate it was to run into such an indecent person so quickly. A flashback reveals Jung-hae as the queen bee who contributed significantly to the original Eun-jo's suicide. Memories surface of Jung-hae's complicated web of affairs involving a husband and multiple lovers. As Lee Eun-jo, she knew these secrets even though she and the actress were never acquainted. The Treufel complex is shown, the place where Jung-hae's lover lived with his legal wife.
Eun-jo recalls becoming close with the wife of the CEO, learning the truth over tea.
The scorned wife reveals that the national actress is nothing more than a bold adulteress. Narrative reveals photo evidence gathered of an illicit affair across Bali, Sweden, and Switzerland.
The wife explains her plan to use these photos to secure more assets in her divorce.
She advises Lee Eun-jo to gather evidence carefully, though for different financial motivations. In the present, the blonde woman stands in the office while considering past affairs.
CEO Jung So-hyun details an upcoming fashion show involving supermodels and fitting models on the floor. The blonde model worries about workplace bullying, a concern the CEO begrudgingly acknowledges as true.
The CEO proposes an alternative VIP party involving aspiring models and high society guests.
The blonde woman begins reviewing documents regarding various opportunities within the industry.
The CEO mentions a specific project, drawing the blonde woman's attention to a new folder.
With sudden determination, the blonde model chooses this specific event for her next move.
A formal announcement marks the opening of the Dane Art Center's Festival of Light Hand.
The physical proposal for the art event sits prominently on the desk, inviting further scrutiny. The CEO explains the job involves helping at her husband's company rather than traditional modeling. The blonde model concludes that the CEO's husband has no connection to our current host. Visual data confirms the husband's security company, Zeus, manages the high-security Treufel complex. Realizing this connection provides a path into Treufel, she grows intensely focused on the task. She confirms with the digital interface that her private system remains invisible to others.
The CEO notes the art event requires helpers who are both knowledgeable and intelligent.
She dismisses the model's role as mere window dressing intended to provide aesthetic appeal. The requirement for sophisticated conversational skills with wealthy patrons makes the CEO hesitant. The CEO bluntly points out the model's lack of a college degree as a disqualifying factor. When the model questions the criteria, the CEO criticizes her lack of refined speech. The CEO mocks her perceived ignorance, but the model defensively insists her speech is adequate.
Standing her ground, the blonde model vows to maintain a professional and intelligent facade.
Narrative recounts the model's reputation as a difficult troublemaker the CEO habitually tries to shield.
Despite being warned about the significantly lower pay, the blonde model accepts the job.
Her internal monologue reveals she originally planned this very event in her past life. A flashback shows her original self diligently working on the foundations of the art exhibition. She recalls the hidden financial opportunities within the event that the security company overlooks. Her hand reaches for the file, finalizing her decision to infiltrate the prestigious exhibition. She argues that the low pay ensures no other models will compete for the position. The CEO seeks final confirmation of her commitment, and the model firmly agrees.
Expressing her gratitude, the blonde woman prepares to depart the office with the proposal.
The CEO calls out, sensing something fundamentally different in the model's recent behavior. She questions the model's uncharacteristic politeness and asks if she is under the influence. The blonde woman casually mentions her recent consumption of an alarmingly high number of pills. Horrified by the lethal quantity mentioned, the CEO reacts with a panicked, protective outburst. Narrative confirms the CEO's previous efforts to help the model manage her severe clinical depression. The CEO asks who would mourn her, but the model remains stoic and unmoved. A dark aura surrounds the model as she reflects on her survival and rebirth. Narrative explains the secret sponsorship and organization behind the exclusive high society art exhibition. The modern architecture of the art center stands ready for the upcoming secret event. The exhibition's exclusivity is emphasized by the careful selection of international masterpieces and guests. Walking through the city, the model reflects on the strict standards she once established herself. She arrives at a new destination, determined to make necessary preparations for her infiltration. Sitting in a salon, she realizes her current flashy appearance is unsuitable for high society. As the stylist works, she considers her backup plan should her social performance fail. The transformation concludes, revealing her hair has been changed to a more natural, elegant brown. Stepping out, she acknowledges the urgent need for a more dignified and appropriate wardrobe. She is appalled by the revealing and tasteless clothes currently filling her host's closet. Eunjo reacts with sudden realization as her phone vibrates with an unexpected message. Walking down the hallway, she stops to check the notification, her expression turning serious.
A message from Park Joo-hyun asking to meet tonight leaves her questioning his sudden interest. Memories of their past intimacy and his cold rejection resurface, fueling her current skepticism.
She recalls a night from months ago when Joo-hyun treated her with intense, heartless desire. Vivid flashes of their previous physical relationship across various locations remind her of his detachment.
Narrative confirms Joo-hyun's inability to reconcile his desire for her with his past abandonment.
The flashback concludes with Eunjo demanding money and Joo-hyun ending their arrangement with cold finality. Despite her previous attempts to cling to him, Joo-hyun had repeatedly ignored her without remorse. Back in the present, she wonders why he would bother reaching out after everything. She firmly concludes that continuing any sort of relationship with him would be a mistake. Standing alone outside, she resolves that a heartless, purely physical connection with Joo-hyun is impossible. With a steady hand, she begins typing a definitive response to his meeting request. Her text message clearly instructs Joo-hyun to forget about her and leave her alone. She finishes the conversation determined to keep her past and present lives completely separate. She walks away, considering the relationship officially terminated as she focuses on her next move. The scene shifts to the Daya Art Center as the Festival of Light event begins.
Preparing for the event, she opts for light makeup and a simple wristwatch for timing.
Dressed in a professional black suit, she adjusts her appearance to fit into high society. She enters the restricted area of the art center, ready to begin her secret infiltration. She reflects on having originally planned this very event years ago to attract wealthy patrons.
A supervisor reminds the staff to follow their instructions carefully while managing the elite guests.
The lead explains the assignment of personal guides to guests and the importance of performance bonuses.
Eunjo notes that many other helpers are art students hoping for professional recognition and networking.
Reviewing the guest list, she searches for a specific target to act as her potential patron. She prepares a small wireless microphone, an essential tool for her plan during the exhibition. Her internal focus shifts to identifying the most strategic person to tag with the microphone.
A colleague informs her that the guests have arrived, signaling the start of the event.
The staff begins the protocol of greeting guests and providing them with audio guide microphones. It is noted that guests rarely refuse the refined and well-prepared helpers during the process. The intense training of the helpers ensures they provide the seamless, high-class service guests expect. Eunjo observes that only 5 helpers remain to be assigned as the arrivals continue. She notes that some helpers are waiting for VIPs while others lost their preferred targets. She recognizes a fellow model from Hera who has also been assigned to Viavet. The short-haired woman stands apart from the group, focused on her own tasks and femme.
Eunjo wonders if the others perceive her host body as she does or something different.
Min Wang-il approaches her, questioning if Director Jung truly authorized her presence at the exhibition. Min Wang-il is identified as the CEO of Zeus and the husband of the agency's CEO. Min Wang-il warns her about a particularly difficult guest among the remaining 10 arriving visitors. He notes her strange smile, warning that she might get stuck with the problematic VIP.
As he promises to keep an eye on her, a subordinate interrupts to announce his arrival.
Min Wang-il expresses frustration upon seeing 2 specific guests arriving at the venue together. He instructs the brown-haired woman to manage a dignified chairman from the Dane group.
He calls out to the black-haired helper Yang Iso to handle the next assignment.
He asks if Iso can handle the difficult elderly woman who has just entered the building.
Iso questions if the newcomer is the notorious bomb that the other helpers are avoiding.
Min Wang-il confirms the woman's difficult reputation, mentioning her recent move to the Treufel complex. He sighs, handing Iso a list of strict precautions to follow when attending to her. Iso accepts the challenge with a resigned attitude, prepared to handle the difficult VIP alone.
As she departs, Iso playfully tells the brown-haired woman she owes her a meal later.
A hand reacts with sudden surprise as it reaches for something just out of sight. Dressed in a professional black suit, the brown-haired woman stands ready for her new assignment. The supervisor leads the helpers into the first exhibition hall to begin managing the guests. Narrative text introduces Kim So-hae, the former director and head of the Global Ruen Group. Despite her picky temperament and reputation, Kim So-hae is a devoted patron of the arts. A title card identifies the Flowers and Butterflies series currently on display in the gallery. The gray-haired woman stands alone, illuminated by a spotlight. Staring at the vibrant floral artwork, the gray-haired woman quietly remarks that it is pathetic. Approaching the guest, the helper identifies the artwork as part of the Flowers and Butterflies series.
The brown-haired woman explains the artist was influenced by Impressionism and focused on light's flow.
She notes the artist made special efforts to capture the ever-changing reflections of light on water. She adds that the blurred lines depict movement, making the scene feel dreamlike to the viewer.
The helper admits she personally likes the piece, causing the gray-haired woman to look back.
The gray-haired woman asks if she knows the artist was a university student. Yoonjo confirms.
She explains the pastel tones reflect the artist's happiness, while ambiguous lines show underlying strength.
The brown-haired woman suggests that the artist's use of the drawing knife was superior back then.
The gray-haired woman reflects that the young helper's analysis of the painting is quite impressive. Bowing politely, the brown-haired woman introduces herself to the director as Na Eunjao.
The gray-haired woman claims she has no need for help, wondering if the name is significant.
Yoonjo offers to accompany her to the digital exhibition, but Soye claims she has no interest.
Mentioning the digital work by Chairman Lee Won-gyu's daughter, Yoonjo guarantees the director will enjoy it.
High society guests and their assigned helpers move through the spacious and modern art gallery.
Narrative text reveals that Kim So-ye was the model's primary target from the very beginning. She targeted someone with influence over high society who also resides in the exclusive Treufel complex.
Her internal focus confirms that Kim So-ye fulfilled every condition required for her hidden objective.
A digital display vividly recreates the floral painting with shimmering light and deep, vibrant colors. Gazing at the screen, the gray-haired woman admits the artist was someone she truly cherished. She recalls connecting with artist Lee Eun-jo despite their age gap and truly liking her. Eun-jo shares that she also liked the artist, noting the director suits the paintings very well. The gray-haired woman smiles warmly and thanks the helper for her kind and flattering words. Asked if she is an art major, Eun-jo explains that financial difficulties prevented her university attendance. The gray-haired woman asks if she likes paintings, and Eun-jo confirms her genuine love for them. When asked if she prefers painting or viewing them, Eun-jo replies that she enjoys doing both. A tall, black-haired man in a suit approaches the two women from across the digital exhibition. The brown-haired woman stops and turns her head, startled by a voice she knows all too well.
Recognizing Park Ju-hyun, she wonders why he has appeared at this specific, exclusive art event.
The gray-haired woman tells the black-haired man he is late. He offers a simple apology. The gray-haired woman explains she has another meeting and asks Yoonjo to assist her front. Accepting the request, Yoonjo is instructed to provide the black-haired man with an audio microphone.
The brown-haired woman moves to fulfill the instruction as the others continue their brief conversation.
The black-haired man feels irritated by the coincidence, questioning the woman's goal and recent behavior. The gray-haired woman curiously asks the two of them if they are already acquainted.
A brief and somewhat hesitant response confirms that they are already familiar with each other.
Eunjo and Park Ju-han stand close together, the atmosphere between them becoming heavy and tense. A message indicates that the speaker will remain within a 20-meter radius of the current location. Ju-han asks if she enjoyed the art. She praises Lee Eun-jo's works and the expert guide.
The black-haired man glances sideways with a suspicious and serious expression on his face.
Left alone in the gallery, the brown-haired woman stares down in a moment of silent reflection. Ju-han asks about the art. So-hye plans to buy pieces recommended by her helper, Yoonja.
So-hye remarks that the black-haired man seems completely captivated, which is uncharacteristic of him.
Kim So-ye tells Park Ju-han that she requested a specific young lady for him to meet. Through her earpiece, Yoonjo overhears Junhan admitting he has yet to find a woman he likes.
A voice coming through the audio receiver reminds Yoonjo to deactivate her microphone before speaking.
Walking away from the pair, Yoonjo reflects on her lingering bitter feelings despite the past ending. The gray-haired director suddenly calls Yoonjo over, interrupting her private walk through the gallery. So-hye asks Yoonjo to briefly disable the audio guide to discuss urgent business with a colleague. Eunjo demonstrates how to toggle the device's power while the director focuses on her upcoming conversation. So-hye requests that Yoonjo entertain Ju-han while she steps away for a private meeting with another. Watching So-hye depart, Ju-han notes how unusual it is for the picky director to favor anyone. Ju-han turns a sharp and suspicious gaze toward the helper as they are left alone together. Ju-han directly questions if she is intentionally staying close to anything related to Lee Eun-jo. Gazing at a vibrant painting, Ju-yeon expresses total disbelief that she could possibly know the artist. He criticizes her for changing her persona to manipulate those who were once close to the artist. Ju-han continues his interrogation, demanding to know what connection she could possibly have to the deceased artist. He harshly dismisses the idea that someone like the artist would ever bother knowing a person like her. Eunjo retorts by asking if he only forms friendships based on what he can gain from others. Looking him in the eye, she firmly states that her relationships are never built on such superficial terms. Ju-han violently grabs her wrist, mocking her desire for respect after she previously acted like his toy. He reminds her of her past persistence, claiming she once begged for a connection he did not want. Grabbing her chin, Ju-hyun demands the truth. She claims the artist was her personal teacher.
She insists she studied painting under Lee Eun-jo, using the claim as a shield for her presence.
Internally, she acknowledges the lie is unprovable, but serves as the most logical excuse for her knowledge. Ju-hyun stands in stunned silence, clearly unsettled by her claim of a deep connection to the artist.
Eunjo asks if he is satisfied and tries to leave, but Ju-hyun tells her to mate.
He cryptically mentions that a person who actually respects her is currently looking for her. Ju-han instructs her to accompany him to the second exhibition hall to meet with director So-hye. The sun sets over the modern gallery building, signaling the transition to the event's next phase. The short-haired helper Yang Iso tells Yoonjo that her current obedient and quiet act is quite ill-fitting.
Iso finds the submissive behavior amusingly fake, prompting Yoonjo to tell her to be quiet.
Narrative text explains that Juhan's failure to turn off his microphone allowed Injo to eavesdrop.
Soye leads a group through the gallery as they discuss the flower and butterfly art series.
The conversation shifts to the financial details of the exhibition, including sales agencies and potential buyers. Unjo listens intently to the broadcast, gathering secret information about the high society dealings. A dark thought crosses her mind, wondering if a man named Kang Jin-woo is secretly intervening.
Iso notices her distracted state and remarks that her behavior has been exceptionally strange all day.
Yoonjo claims she is simply grown up, but when Iso warns against sudden changes, Yoonjo says she's dead.
Iso stares at her with a knowing expression, telling her she should act more like herself.
Startled by the use of her nickname, Yoonjo wonders if Iso is more observant than she realized.
She reflects on the fact that Iso was never part of the inner circle that bullied her.
Enjo walks away from the conversation, telling her colleague to stop interfering in her personal business. Iso reacts with a look of genuine surprise as she watches her partner walk away. Left alone in the corridor, the short-haired woman stands in silence, seemingly lost in thought.
At 9 o'clock, the first part of the festival concludes and Yoonjo receives a payment envelope.
Narrative text highlights Sohye's reputation for being incredibly generous toward the people she personally likes.
Unjo estimates the payment is enough for months of living, proving her infiltration was highly profitable.
Her focus shifts when she recognizes a familiar scent and a voice celebrating a major win.
A woman with long red hair wearing a glamorous black gown appears, looking radiant and victorious.
Unjo is stunned by the appearance of Kim Na-in, wondering how she entered the exclusive event.
She realizes that Kim Na-in managed to gain access to a venue even powerful men could not.
Narrative text reveals that Kim Na-in used the specific invitation Lee Eun-jo had hidden in her drawer.
A hand clenches into a tight fist as narrative text questions if someone ransacked the room.
Eun-jo realizes that Na-in's entire ensemble, from the designer dress to the shoes, was stolen.
The short-haired woman thanks her friend for the invitation, asking why Na-in's husband was excluded.
The woman complains that her wealthy husband lacked an invitation while Yoonjo recognizes Chae Jung-hae. Watching them walk away, Yoonjo reflects on the unexpected connection between the two glamorous women. The woman remarks that money alone cannot buy entry into such an exclusive artistic venue.
A close-up shot focuses on Eunjo's hand as she tightly grips the strap of her back. The helper stands in the corridor as the silhouettes of the two women move past.
A dark, textured background creates a sense of lingering tension after the brief, silent encounter.
Eunjo walks in the opposite direction, trying to maintain her professional composure despite her anger.
Chae Jung-hae pauses and glances back over her shoulder with a sharp and curious expression. Yoonjo urges herself to move quickly as the party begins, realizing she cannot reclaim her stolen invitation.
The helper is surprised to see CEO Park Ju-hyun, wondering what his presence here signifies.
Ju-hyun is confused by the approach, so Jung-hae reminds him they met at a film party. Ju-hyun tries to depart, but Jung-hae stops him to introduce her companion, Kim Na-in. The black-haired man stops walking and turns back to face the women with cold indifference. Ju-hyun asks if the woman knows him. Na-in claims they met at the artist's funeral. He asks whose side she was on, and Na-in claims she was on Yoonjo's side.
The red-haired woman looks down with a look of feigned sadness or internal calculations. Na insists that she and the artist were inseparable, but Ju-hyun looks completely unconvinced.
She claims that she was the only person the artist truly had in her life. Ju-hyun looks at the envelope in his hand with a cold and calculating gaze. He questions the non-transferable invitation. Na-in lies that the artist personally gifted it to her. Na-in begins to cry, claiming they were supposed to come together, while Jung-hee offers comfort.
Ju-hyun confirms that the envelope holds the deceased artist's invitation, his expression growing more stern.
He asks if they plan to attend together. Na-in confirms while Yoonjo watches them nearby. Ju-hyun calls the chairman, explaining that he needs to confirm a specific detail about the list. He asks who the artist would have accompanied as Na-in watches him with visible anxiety. The voice on the phone sounds confused by the sudden mention of the deceased artist.
The caller clarifies that the artist always attended alone and never brought anyone, including her husband.
Ju-hyun confirms that entry is restricted to those on the list, regardless of possessing an invitation.
The caller explains the invitation security codes while Yoonjo is seen listening in the background. Ju-hyun reflects that the strict security keeps out intruders as the chairman asks for clarification.
He dismisses the call as Jung-ye asks Na-in to explain the meaning of the situation. Ju-hyun mocks Na-in for her costume, telling her she can never actually become the artist. Holding the envelope, the black-haired man informs Na-in that he is officially confiscating the invitation. The two women stand in stunned silence as the CEO walks away with the evidence. Ju-en reflects on his unpleasant impression of the woman as he looks at the stolen envelope. Sitting in his car, he dismisses Na-in's claims of friendship as a blatant and obvious lie. He concludes that the red-haired woman belongs on the side of Vice Chairman Kang Jin-woo. Ju-hyun's thoughts confirm his belief that Na-in was never truly on the artist's side.
He reflects that the red-haired woman is nothing like the real Na Yoon-jo he met. A close-up focuses on the black-haired man's determined expression as he drives away from the gallery.
He recalls the image of the helper he saw today, comparing her to the deceased artist.
Joo-han reflects that he normally wouldn't care, but something about this woman feels strangely significant.
He resolves to personally confirm if the helper truly was a disciple of the deceased artist. The city lights glimmer across the skyline as the scene transitions to the following night. Yoonjo sits alone at a dark bus stop, appearing small and isolated against the city.
She reflects on their past relationship, wondering how he recognized the dress after 8 years.
Gripping her bag, she wonders if his behavior is driven by resentment toward her family.
Unjo sits alone at a desolate bus stop, her figure silhouetted against the night.
She urges herself to forget the past and move forward from the lingering game.
Enjo anticipates a call from director Soye, hoping her fabricated persona will prompt an invitation.
She reflects on her expert recommendations, confident the chosen paintings will soon double in value.
Unjo expresses absolute confidence in her professional judgment regarding the future of the art pieces.
She plans to use Soye as a stepping stone to infiltrate more exclusive social circles.
The shadows of high society loom as Yinjo plots her next move against her enemies. She considers her slow approach necessary while a car pulls up to the dark curb. Standing at the bus stop, the woman looks down as she senses an approaching presence. Park Joo-hyun arrives in his luxury car, surprising Yoonjo as she waits for her transport.
She rarely asks the CEO if he has returned specifically to inflict more emotional harm.
Joo-hyun commands her to enter the vehicle, but she firmly refuses to accept his ride.
He demands she get in to stop blocking traffic, though she notes he is the obstruction.
Unjo shouts at the CEO in frustration as a bus begins honking loudly behind him.
Juan refuses to move his car until she complies, leaving her stunned by his stubborn behavior.
The black-haired man softens his tone and asks her to enter the car once more.
Unjo stares at him through the open window, unsettled by his sudden shift in demeanor. A brief memory of a past encounter flickers through her mind, adding to her confusion. Enjo admits she only entered the vehicle because of the specific words he chose. The luxury car pulls away from the bus stop and merges into the city traffic. She sits in silence, looking out the window as the city lights blur past them. Joo-hyun asks where she lives, but she instructs him to take her to an art store. He questions if she truly intends to paint, prompting her to request a quiet drive. The two travel in a heavy silence, each lost in their own complicated thoughts and motivations. The scene transitions as the night deepens, marking a shift in their tense interaction. Joo-hyun remains focused on the road, his expression unreadable despite the proximity of his passenger. He reflects on her past desperation, concluding her current behavior is likely a calculated facade.
Unjo demands that they finish the remainder of the journey without any further conversation.
The car navigates the glowing city streets as the tension between them reaches a peak. Joo-hyun breaks the silence by asking if they should fulfill their prior arrangement tonight.
He suggests heading to a hotel, referencing a night they previously spent together.
Unjo rejects the proposal, stating she has no intention of repeating her past mistakes.
She looks away, declaring that she is no longer interested in a loveless physical connection.
Looking in the mirror, Joo-hyun questions her claim, insisting he found their time together enjoyable.
Unjo clarifies that his heart was meant for the deceased artist, not for her. Joo-hyun looks at her with a stunned expression, caught off guard by her blunt assessment. He asks if she hates him, while she admits she cannot deny his perspective.
The black-haired man narrows his eyes, his mind racing with suspicion and hidden emotions.
He reflects on her knowledge of his specific triggers regarding the deceased artist's name. Joo-hyun accuses her of playing a trick by using the name she knows he obsesses over.
Unjo asks what trick he means while he questions her motives for approaching him.
She insists she would have stayed far away from him had she known his obsession. Joo-hyun considers her sudden change in behavior, noting it only occurred after the artist's death.
He asks why she is confronting him now and if she hopes to become the artist.
Joo-hyun proposes a hypothetical scenario where she actually was the deceased artist's secret student.
He demands that she provide concrete proof to verify her claims and clear his doubts. The two characters face each other in the car, the air thick with unresolved tension.
Unjo looks down, her expression hidden as she prepares to double down on her story.
She claims the artist taught her to paint as a way to help her survive. Joo-hyun points out that he never mentioned the artist taught him art, trapping her.
Unjo reflects that he never spoke of it before asserting her own strong sense of intuition.
The black-haired man is surprised to find that the woman possesses a sharp and unexpected wit. Unjo fears that her emotions and the artist's memories are becoming a dangerously tangled mess. Deciding to distance herself, she questions if she truly must prove her past to him. She tells the CEO that he is free to disbelieve her if he finds her untrustworthy.
The man remains silent, reflecting that her honesty or lies make no difference to him personally.
The luxury car continues its journey through the glowing city streets during the deep night.
While driving, the man asks how long she's been acquainted with the deceased artist. Yoonjo watches him warily, wondering exactly what information the CEO is trying to uncover now.
She considers her response, wondering if she should claim a shared history of 8 years. A brief memory shows a couple sharing a quiet and creative moment by an easel. She realizes that a long history would require physical evidence that she currently does not possess.
Yoonjo claims she began learning 3 years ago and only became close in the last year.
She explains she learned during spare moments at the studio but refuses to provide more details.
She declares that knowing his true interest is the artist, she will stop pestering him. The woman expresses her hope that they never repeat this embarrassing and unpleasant encounter again. A heavy silence settles between the two passengers as they navigate the evening traffic together. They arrive at the station and the man bluntly commands his passenger to exit the vehicle.
Yoonjo offers a brief word of thanks as she steps out of the luxury car.
Walking away, she tells herself that despite the pain, she must never look back again. The CEO calls out to her through the car window, catching her completely by surprise. The woman stops on the sidewalk and looks back toward the man in the luxury vehicle. He tells her to call him, leaving her bewildered by his persistence after her rejection.
Unjo stands alone on the sidewalk, staring at her phone as the luxury car pulls away.
Smirking to himself, the man reflects with confidence that she will eventually reach out to him. The woman scoffs at the suggestion, declaring her intention to never call him as he leaves.
Yoonjo scolds herself for her recent behavior, feeling like a fool for her emotional reactions.
Kim Na-in fumes in a parking garage, feeling deeply humiliated by her recent social failure. She blames her mistreatment on the deceased artist and her own brother's lack of support. Approaching an elevator, she expresses her annoyance just as a security guard interrupts her progress. The guard asks which unit she is visiting, prompting an offended response from the red-haired woman. Na-in is outraged, asking the employee if he is truly unaware of her personal identity.
The guard remains professional but confused while she continues to demand immediate and respectful recognition.
She insists security should recognize residents, but the guard asks for her specific unit number. The woman proudly claims to be the resident of the penthouse unit number 4601. The guard is shocked, stating that the unit is officially the home of artist Lee Eun-jo. Na-in is overcome with rage at the mention of the artist, feeling sick of her. The guard requests her name and phone number for visitor verification, causing her extreme frustration.
In a sudden outburst of physical violence, the red-haired woman delivers a hard slap.
She screams at the guard to never call her a visitor and to remember her face. Na-in declares herself the true lady of the house and loudly identifies herself by name. A man in gray loungewear asks if she finds it creepy to handle the deceased's belongings. He points out that the artist's father would have intervened long ago if there were issues.
Na-in urges the man to get ready for their outing, but he expresses sudden hesitation.
He questions partying so soon after the artist's death, while she plots to avoid suspicion. A quiet night hangs over the modern building as the sound of sobbing fills the air. Na-in stands in the doorway, calling out to her companion while appearing visibly distressed. The man asks why she returned from the party in tears, seeking an immediate explanation.
She blames her unhappiness on his refusal to marry her, though he finds it inappropriate.
Na-in demands he at least promise a future marriage to comfort her through her current grief. The red-haired woman tells the brown-haired man to sleep alone tonight, catching him completely off guard. The man turns away in frustration, lamenting that he ate eel for such a disappointing evening. He decides it is her loss, noting that the night is long and other women are available. The scene shifts to a quiet building as thoughts turn to a bonus from a festival. A close-up shows 2 envelopes resting on a wooden table representing a significant monetary reward.
Injo reflects on Na-in's habit of using her belongings, finding it ridiculous that she entered her room.
The woman recalls how Na-in always coveted her possessions, specifically while she was organizing old shoes.
Na-in asks how she can give away pretty items. Yoonjo offers them to her if they fit.
Trying on a pair of ornate shoes, the red-haired woman notes that they almost fit her feet. Na-in suggests surgery to make the shoes fit, an idea Yoonjo finds deeply unsettling and strange.
A narration box describes how those words, though spoken as a joke, were actually quite chilling. Yoonjo imagines her enemy surrounded by her stolen possessions, likely screaming with joy at the takeover.
Determined to handle the situation, the brown-haired woman resolves to confront Kim Na-in herself very soon.
In an office, an employee tells her team leader that a persistent woman has returned once again.
The team leader looks down at his desk, appearing troubled by the news of the frequent visitor. A woman answers the phone, identifying the office as belonging to the CEO of MK Investment. She informs Yoonjo that the CEO is busy and requests that she call back in an hour.
In a grand office, Park Joo-hyun sits at his large desk and commands someone to enter.
Secretary Gyo enters, reporting that Yoonjo has already called 7 times since 9 in the morning. Joo-hyun remains focused on his computer, asking a simple question to dismiss the secretary's obvious concern.
Gyo advises the CEO to stop playing games and either answer or provide a valid excuse.
The secretary asks if the black-haired man is intentionally playing hard to get with the persistent woman.
Joo-hyun asks who said he wasn't, causing his secretary to stare at him in total disbelief.
The CEO maintains a calm and unreadable expression as he considers the current social power struggle. Gyo reminds him of his previous claim that he was only playing because the name was identical. Using chibi icons, the secretary insists the woman is not in his league. Joo-hyun agrees mockingly. Gyo offers to introduce him to better women just as a sudden commotion occurs at the door. The 2 men look toward the entrance, surprised by the abrupt arrival of an unannounced guest. Eun-jo bursts into the office with determination, ignoring the staff member trying to hold her back. The secretary identifies the intruder as Miss Lee Yoon-jo as she approaches the CEO's large desk. Slamming her hands on the table, Yoon-jo demands to know if Park Joo-hyun is playing games. Joo-han calmly addresses Secretary Kim Gyu-oh while Eun-jo glares at him from across the expensive desk.
The black-haired man questions the effectiveness of the company's security measures after the woman's easy entry.
He asks if unannounced visitors can just barge in. Eun-jo laughs while the secretary begins to apologize.
Eun-jo agrees the staff needs retraining since they let her in simply for showing his business card.
A close-up shows Joo-han's business card resting next to an envelope on the glossy office desk. Joo-han admits he thought she had thrown the card away despite her frantic and numerous office calls.
Eun-jo clarifies that she avoided calling him personally because she refused to save his phone number.
Smirking, the CEO notes that making her call the office was easier than mailing a business card.
The woman stares at him with an intense gaze, clearly annoyed by his calculated and manipulative behavior.
Joo-han asks for her business. She explains she is returning an item exactly as she received it.
A chibi-style secretary is ordered to bring 2 cups of tea before immediately leaving the room.
Eun-jo declines the tea and tries to leave, but the CEO firmly commands her to sit down.
The brown-haired woman pauses, looking hesitant as the power dynamic in the room shifts once again.
Narration details sponsorship rules from the festival and director Sohei's generous scholarship offer to help Eun-jo. Eun-jo reads a note while narration claims Joo-han did something unprecedented and broke the festival rules.
Holding a cup, the black-haired man asks if the amount of money he provided was too small.
Eun-jo boldly claims it was too small, expecting $1 billion to match his company's prestigious name. The woman sits upright and confident, prepared to negotiate her worth against the CEO's prior financial insult. Joo-hyun smiles slightly, noting that most people are grateful for even smaller amounts than he gave her.
Eun-jo declares her refusal to engage in that kind of transaction with the CEO any longer.
Park Joo-hun smirks while repeating her phrase about that kind of transaction back to her.
The CEO questions if she would reconsider if he offered 1 billion won instead of 100 million.
Joo-han looks at her calmly and asks the brown-haired woman if she would do it for that amount.
In a chibi-style panel, the black-haired man drinks tea while a furious Eun-jo asks what he means exactly.
Eun-jo addresses Park Joo-hyun by name, her expression showing her offense at his bold financial proposition.
Joo-han tells Eun-jo she's misunderstanding as the money is not compensation for sleeping together.
He explains he was just being generous given her reputation while the woman stares at him coldly.
The black-haired man maintains a neutral expression as the tense negotiation continues in the office.
Joo-han asks to buy her time, offering 100 million won for a single month.
A close-up shows the woman's shocked expression as she calls him crazy for suggesting such a deal. Eun-jo stands up and announces her departure now that the money has been returned to him.
The brown-haired woman looks back one last time before leaving the CEO's office.
At a bar, Secretary Gyo repeatedly calls the CEO crazy for his recent actions with the woman.
Joo-han asks if it was really that crazy while the secretary confirms it was completely insane.
Gyo asks the CEO if he actually has romantic feelings for the persistent woman named Eun-jo.
The black-haired man replies that his interest would depend on the specific kind of feelings.
The secretary questions why he would throw money at a model when he usually avoids such frivolous behavior.
Joo-yeon explains he tested her to see if she would return the money since she seemed different.
Gyo asks if this test is related to the deceased artist named Eun-jo.
The CEO remarks that he has hired a good secretary while observing the man beside him.
Joo-han reflects on the fact that the woman was actually the deceased artist's disciple. The secretary reacts with shock as the black-haired man takes a drink from his glass.
A close-up reveals Joo-han's contemplative profile as he thinks about the woman who took his place.
Sitting on her bed, Eun-jo realizes she forgot about her secret studio in Seongsu-dom.
The brown-haired woman looks away, noting the problem with the studio being her secret assets.
Eun-jo worries that ownership of her secret paintings might transfer to Kang Jin-woo after his investigation.
She commands her AI assistant Navi to show the list of assets inherited by the man. Eun-jo reviews her unnotarized will and real estate assets, determined to protect her belongings. The woman tells her AI assistant she's about to do something bad and asks for help.
An exterior view shows a tall, modern office building in the middle of the city.
In a large room, 2 men discuss how 16 days have passed since the artist guide.
A text bubble notes the difficulty of keeping a low profile until the 49th day memorial.
The brown-haired man in the white shirt declares his need to reorganize CX Soft immediately. He reflects on his 3 years of effort and refuses to wait because of the deceased artist.
The assistant agrees and asks if the red-haired woman is still behaving in the same way.
The man states that Na-in should stop acting cute before she becomes troublesome for their side.
Handing over a black card, he tells his assistant to send Na-in shopping instead. He tells Secretary Yam to buy a suit as well to maintain standards while accompanying him.
The man tells the secretary to manage Na-in well and prevent her from calling today.
Eun-jo walks through the city, questioning if she is currently committing a crime with her plan.
She justifies her actions to herself as solving her own problems while walking past a van.
The brown-haired woman pauses on the sidewalk with a conflicted and serious expression on her face.
Narration explains that Eun-jo is imitating her own former handwriting to write a letter for a lawyer. Eun-jo resolves to invalidate the inheritance and prevent Kang Jin-woo from taking anything from her.
The woman arrives at a large corporate building, looking up at its towering glass facade.
She notes that the representative lawyer at this firm drafted the initial version of her will. Eun-jo enters the building, describing the lawyer as a long-time, trustworthy friend.
The brown-haired woman stops in her tracks with a look of pure shock and disbelief.
She watches as the lawyer greets Kang Jin-woo, calling him the new chairman of the company.
Lawyer Du Woo-jung questions the situation and mentions how many eyes are currently watching them.
Standing in the lobby, the lawyer suggests confidence since Kang Jin-woo is the sole heir.
Anjo is shocked to realize her friend and her husband are collaborating behind her back.
The brown-haired woman clutches her forehead as she begins to feel overwhelmed and dizzy.
Narrative boxes confirm that Kang Jin-woo is now the only one inheriting the entire company.
Eun-jo calls for her AI assistant while a man nearby asks if she is feeling all right.
The woman turns around in a daze as someone reaches out a hand to her.
Lawyer Du Woo-jung suggests finding an infirmary because the young lady looks very pale.
Shouting for the men to let her go, Yoonjo stumbles while they express their concern.
A close-up shows the woman's panicked expression as someone addresses her as Miss Lee Yoonjo. A man dressed in a black suit reaches out to catch the woman before she falls.
As she loses her balance, Yoonjo smells a nostalgic scent and feels herself beginning to collapse.
Park Ju-hyun catches the brown-haired woman in his arms just as she completely loses consciousness.
The CEO holds the fainted woman while the other men watch the sudden intervention in surprise.
Lawyer Du Woo-jung stares in utter disbelief, wondering why Park Ju-han has appeared at his firm. Ju-han looks down at the woman in his arms and asks Na Eun-jo if she is okay.
Looking at her, the lawyer recalls a memory of Yoonjo asking him if he believes in ghosts.
A vision of the original artist appears as she introduces herself with a bright, professional smile.
The lawyer starts sweating and tries to tell himself that the identical name is just coincidence. Ju-han looks at the men and asks for the identity of the young lady he is holding.
The black-haired CEO carries the woman away, stating that she is an acquaintance of his. The lawyer tries to speak with the man, but Ju-hyun dismisses him, saying he lacks time.
Ju-han announces he is leaving because his friend collapsed and promises to return another time.
The men watch him walk away, complaining about how annoying his perfect looks and intelligence are.
They discuss how the CEO seems to have been gifted with every possible talent by God.
Lawyer Du Woo-jung smites and remarks that the world has always been an unfair place.
The other man mentions Ju-hyun's tragic childhood and his father's suicide years ago.
A lone figure stands in a dark, shattered environment, representing the tragedy of the CEO's past.
The men wonder why he chose to lead an investment firm instead of becoming a programmer. They discuss the talent within the company and mention Chairman Lee Won-gyu's previous opposition.
The lawyer is warned for being too careless in public and quickly offers his apologies.
The man adds that CEO Park Ju-han and the deceased artist were actually very close.
The lawyer wonders if their relationship was more significant than just a teacher and a student.
Yoonjo wakes up in a new room and asks her AI assistant for the current time.
A close-up shows the woman's eyes snapping open as she fully returns to her senses.
Navi informs the woman that she is currently inside Park Ju-han's house after her collapse.
Eunjo is surprised she can communicate with the AI without speaking, as she remains on the sofa. Ju-han enters the room and tells her they cannot talk if she does not speak out loud.
Standing over her, the black-haired man tells Yoonjo to wake up because he needs a conversation.
The brown-haired woman sits up quickly, her expression guarded as she looks at the CEO.
Eunjo apologizes and explains that she was feeling very dizzy earlier in the law firm lobby.
The man holds up a white envelope and asks the woman to explain what it is.
Eunjo realizes with horror that the man has found her secret letter to the lawyer.
Ju-hyun holds the letter out of her reach and demands to know why she has it.
Grabbing her hand, the CEO asks why a letter from the deceased Yoonjo is in her possession.
The woman remains silent with a shadowed face, unable to find an immediate answer for him. Eunjo looks away and claims that her teacher was the one who personally gave it to her.
The two sit together in the dimly lit living room as the night falls outside. A flashback shows the artist writing a message asking Navi to suspect Kang Jin-woo if she dies.
The letter urges the recipient to find lawyer Du Woo-jung and stay away from her husband. Ju-hyun studies the paper in his hands, realizing he definitely recognizes the deceased artist's handwriting.
The black-haired man stares at the signature in disbelief, certain that the letter belongs to Yoonjo.
Ju-hyun asks why she has this document, but Na Eun-jo insists it was left for her.
He questions why the artist would ever leave a letter like this to a mere student.
The CEO reflects on the lack of connection between the two women before Na Eun-jo demands it back. The black-haired man states that he simply could not believe the truth and will keep the letter.
Ju-hyun asks if she intends to see the lawyer again, claiming the artist was wrong about him.
Clenching her fists, the brown-haired woman states she has eyes and knows what she saw earlier.
The CEO warns that this single letter will cause a massive ripple if his theory is correct.
He asks if she can be trusted not to betray the artist, warning her of the danger.
Na Eun-jo stares back with a hard, unwavering expression as the tense conversation reaches a stalemate. Sitting alone, the man reflects that he would not have left that woman years ago if he were a traitor.
Under the night sky, she agrees to leave the letter with him for just a few days.
The moon shines over a quiet residential building as the scene shifts to the woman's home.
Clutching her head in bed, Na Eun-jo notes the pain comes from her soul settling into this body. As the woman sleeps, a silent digital interface from her assistant floats in the dark room.
A flashback reveals the day a robber stabbed her mother, Na Byung, while Eun-jo cried for help.
The dying mother urges her daughter to take care of the Midas Welfare Center in Haewadong.
Following the tragedy, her father focused on chatbot research while Yoonjo buried herself in her paintings.
Back in the present, Ju-han sits at his desk, his thoughts lingering on the name Na Eun-jo.
He reflects on the complex and unpleasant feelings he has regarding sharing the artist's identity.
The CEO realizes he is reacting to everything about Lee Yoon-jo, not just a shared name.
A smartphone vibrates on the desk, displaying an incoming call from a director named Kim So-hye.
The black-haired man picks up the phone, noting the caller is a director from a firm called Ruen.
The director asks the CEO if he knew about the relationship between Na Eun-jo and the artist. Joo-han answers the call, listening intently as the director brings up the young woman's name.
Director Kim So-hye reports that the recent check was used at a welfare center in Haewadon.
The CEO notes the center was founded by the artist's mother to help those in need.
Narrative boxes explain that Kang Jin-moo stopped the artist's monthly donations, but the young lady paid instead.
The director praises the woman for her character, assuming she was incredibly close to the late artist.
Juan remains silent, absorbing the surprising news about the woman's recent charitable actions.
Standing at his desk, the CEO tells the director he will call her back later. At a bus stop, Na Eun-jo notes she donated most of her money to the Fenner.
Boarding a bus, the woman is relieved to have work as she grows used to commuting alone.
Grabbing a handle on the crowded bus, she wonders if she is finally adapting to this life. A man's hand brushes against her and the brown-haired woman tells him to take it off.
She threatens to break his fingers if he does not stop touching her body immediately. The man in the hoodie smirks, accusing her of making a fuss over a tiny accidental brush.
Na Eun-jo calls him a pervert, stating that deliberately brushing against someone is a form of harassment.
The harasser remains arrogant while another passenger looks on at the unfolding confrontation.
A close-up shows the woman's hands as she prepares to record the interaction on her phone.
Na Eun-jo informs the man she is recording the incident for evidence, leaving him momentarily stunned.
The man insults her, claiming he only touched her because of her provocative appearance.
He continues his vulgar verbal assault while the woman thinks about what a lunatic he is.
The man claims she was the one tempting men with her hair and clothing as the bus mouse.
Na Eun-jo states she won't let this slide, while the man asks if she will actually report him. A close-up reveals the woman's eyes glowing with a cold, intense fury at the man's behavior.
She notes he is studying to be a teacher and vows to prevent such trash from succeeding.
Raising her hand to signal her intent, she shouts for him to go ahead and sue her back.
Standing in an empty elevator, Na Eun-jo sighs over the terrible start to her morning.
Na Eun-jo reflects on the harsh personality of the body's previous owner as a necessary shield.
Resolving to pay her debts, the woman notes she must head to work immediately despite threats. Entering an office, the brown-haired woman asks the director if she was summoned for a specific reason. Director Kim So-hye questions the woman about her recent health improvement and asks if she is medicated. The director praises her for acting like a normal person, which the woman finds a dubious compliment.
Moving to business, the director presents 3 job opportunities, noting a mandatory request from the boss.
Na Eun-jo observes with satisfaction that the director is finally making a move as she expected.
The director explains that the second role is a mid-cast part in an upcoming major film. The final request involves assisting at a high-end party for an exclusive club called Young and Rich.
Na Eun-jo realizes this is a perfect chance because her target, Kang Jin-woo, is a regular member.
The director notes that while such jobs were once beneath her, her strengths have recently expanded beyond looks.
Sitting at her desk, the director asks the brown-haired woman which of the 3 options she will choose.
The woman decisively accepts all the offers except for the film role, surprising her superior.
When asked why she would refuse such a rare acting opportunity, the woman refuses to change her answer.
She reflects privately that joining that specific film would allow a rival actress to ruin her life again.
The director agrees to the schedule, detailing a party this Friday at the prestigious Cloud Hotel.
Handing over a folder, the director instructs her to coordinate her styling and makeup with the team.
As the woman prepares to leave, a short-haired actress bursts into the office calling for the CEO.
A close-up reveals the newcomer's intense, focused expression as she surveys the room with clear irritation.
The actress demands a proper greeting, but Na Eun-jo offers only a cold professional acknowledgement to her senior.
Ignoring further demands, the brown-haired woman walks past the actress and exits the room with quiet confidence.
Infuriated, the actress rants to the director about the woman's sudden arrogance and refusal to show respect.
Director Kim So-hye tells the actress to stop and asks why she constantly targets her junior colleague.
The actress argues that her hostility is justified because the woman supposedly interfered with a man named Yoonwoo.
The director retorts that CCTV footage showed the man was the aggressor, but the actress remains unconvinced.
The actress demands to know what jobs were assigned and learns about the upcoming party assistance role. Slamming her hand down, the actress demands the party job be canceled or she will quit her film.
Elsewhere, Na Eun-jo studies the guest list and confirms that Kang Jin-woo is indeed planning to attend.
She reflects that his attendance so soon after his wife's death signals the gathering's immense importance.
Flipping through the documents, the woman wonders what other significant figures are on the exclusive list.
A name on the paper causes a shock, making her wonder if her father's former secretary is involved.
A memory reveals Jo Hyun-soo, her father's loyal right-hand man who vanished without a trace after her death.
Suddenly, a dark liquid splashes across the woman's face and the important documents in her hands.
Covered in coffee, Na Eun-jo looks up in shock as her rival stands over her with an empty cup.
The actress casually tosses the cup aside and begins tearing the guest list to shreds with a smirk.
Standing up in the middle of the lobby, the brown-haired woman asks the actress if she has lost her mind. Na Eun-jo demands to know why she is acting so poorly and where her professional manners have gone.
The actress mocks her for suddenly caring about class, calling her trash as she continues destroying the papers.
A group of bystanders watches the public confrontation with mixed expressions of amusement, concern, and shock. The actress warns her that she won't be attending the party and tells her to stay in her lane.
Na Eun-jo reflects that the previous soul in this body would have simply stayed silent and endured this abuse.
Covered in coffee stains, the woman stands her ground with a cold, unwavering gaze directed at her attacker.
The actress continues her verbal assault, accusing her of trying to snag a rich husband to change her status.
Smiling cruelly, the woman tells her rival to stick to the low-status places where she truly belongs.
The scene transitions to the actress pouring wine over her head while delivering more cutting, elitist insults.
A close-up shows a subtle, dangerous smile forming on Na Eun-jo's face as she absorbs the latest insult. Turning the tables, the woman asks if the actress frequents host bars because they match her own low level.
The actress is visibly shaken by the counterattack, her expression shifting to one of genuine, stunned disbelief. Na Eun-jo brings up specific past meetings at room salons, suggesting those are the places fitting for the actress.
Unable to handle the public exposure of her secrets, the actress lashes out and slaps the woman across the face.
The short-haired actress gasps as the brown-haired woman offers a cold, challenging look.
Na Eun-jo claims she has been patient and threatens to go public with the actress's secrets. The brown-haired woman mockingly offers to define public exposure if the actress is struggling to understand.
The actress grabs Na Eun-jo's hair while Joo-han's voice demands to know what she is doing.
Na Eun-jo freezes in shock upon hearing the CEO's voice as the actress continues her assault. The black-haired man appears, making the stunned woman wonder if it is truly Bak Joo-hyun. Joo-hyun questions the actress's competence and compares her lowly status to a man named Kim Min-soo.
The CEO's hand reaches out and firmly takes hold of the brown-haired woman's arm to intervene.
Joo-hyun leads the coffee-stained woman away from the lobby as a crowd of onlookers watches.
Inside a luxury vehicle, Joo-hyun hands the woman a handkerchief and tells her to clean up. Na Eun-jo silently wipes her face, looking down with a deeply troubled and tearful expression.
A close-up shows the black-haired man's mouth as he watches the woman in silence. Grasping the woman's chin, the CEO commands Na Eun-jo to look directly at him.
Joo-hyun observes her tears, reflecting that her gaze contains emotions beyond mere anger, sadness, or pain.
Narrative boxes describe a complex and desperate energy swirling within the eyes of Kim Na-en.
Looking at a beaded bracelet, the CEO thinks about the death of a retriever named Nabi. A flashback photo reveals the original artist with her dog, describing a memorial bracelet made from ashes. In a memory, Joo-hyun comforts the crying artist and tells her it is okay to let out tears. The man recalls kissing the artist to absorb her sorrow and swallow the sobs escaping her lips. Back in the car, Joo-hyun tells the woman it is okay to cry and let it out. The brown-haired woman remains still, her hands tightly clutching the handkerchief the CEO provided for her.
Na Eun-jo reflects that she should push him away but finds herself unable to resist his touch.
She feels herself crumbling under the weight of long-lost sensations as the man moves closer to her.
The woman thinks his touch is melting her sorrow, while a close-up reveals Joo-hyun's intense gaze. Na Eun-jo welcomes his warmth even in this body as the man begins to speak to her. The black-haired man pulls the woman close and kisses her passionately in the backseat of the vehicle. Sharing an intimate kiss, the woman reflects on how much she has missed this familiar, cherished sensation. A close-up shows the man's hand on her head as they continue their desperate and physical embrace. The scene shifts to a wider view of the couple kissing urgently inside the darkened luxury car.
Joo-hyun asks the woman why she is so tense, noting it feels like her very first time.
Na Eun-jo reflects on the 8-year gap while stammering about needing to wash up and undress herself.
A button flies off the woman's shirt as she hurriedly pulls it open in front of Joo-hyun. Seeing a button fall, Na Eun-jo admits she both hates and loves the CEO's current behavior. The couple kisses again, with the woman wondering why the situation has become so intensely heated.
Na Eun-jo notes the man's unusual urgency, recalling he never held Na-in with such desperate passion.
A close-up reveals the black-haired man's hands as he begins to unbuckle his dark leather belt.
Joo-hyun is shown shirtless as the woman breathes heavily, confused by the source of his intense excitement. The CEO removes his shirt while the woman thinks there is no way this can be happening. Reflecting that she is finally alive and in his arms, she decides the circumstances no longer matter. In the dim light, the couple embraces tightly as the woman finds enough peace in his arms. Na Eun-jo feels a deep sadness, wondering how he could discard her for another with her name. A close-up reveals the CEO's focused expression as he looks down with a serious and intense gaze. A flashback shows Eun-jo crying on the floor, questioning why she was thrown away and left trapped. The woman reflects on her resentment and her inability to forget him even after getting married. Believing it is fate, she finds herself understanding him again as the scene shifts to an apartment. Wearing a white robe, Na Eun-jo informs the man that she is going to wash up now. The black-haired man sits on the bed in his robe, watching the woman walk away from him. Joo-hyun reflects on losing his reason when she cried, noting she looked exactly like his late Eun-jo.
The man thinks about her intimate reactions, convinced she was undeniably and simply his lost Yoonjo. Covering his face, the CEO tries to deny the impossible truth that the woman is his Yoonjo. The black-haired man reflects deeply on his intense interaction with the brown-haired woman.
Narrative boxes describe his thoughts on the woman's reaction to his touch during their intimacy.
Joo-hun thinks her voice and name-calling perfectly match the nuance of his late partner, Yoonjo.
The black-haired man wonders why the woman cried, certain it wasn't from pain or rejection.
Narrative boxes explain how Joo-hun preferred the old Yoonjo's coldness to avoid feeling like a burden. Standing in the hallway, the black-haired man continues to question why the woman acted differently today.
Joo-hun answers a call from Kim Gyu-oh, confirming that he is listening to the director's report.
Joo-hun orders Kim Gyu-oh to cut film investments and tells his secretary to buy clothes for Na Eun-jo.
The black-haired man stands near the doorway, preparing for his next move after the phone call.
Na Eun-jo tells the man she will wash up and leave immediately afterward, appearing somewhat flustered.
Joo-hun suggests they wash together since there is only one bathroom, following the woman into the shower.
Later, the couple sits across from each other at a table in a high-rise luxury apartment.
A close-up shows hands clasped near a cup of coffee as Na Eun-jo addresses the director.
The brown-haired woman tentatively asks the director if she can request a specific favor from him.
Joo-hyun invites her to speak while Na Eun-jo asks if he is still willing to buy her time. Na Eun-jo agrees to the deal, though she secretly feels pathetic for begging Joo-hun for help.
The woman explains her urgent financial situation, mentioning her ending lease, monthly payments, and her paintings.
Joo-hun finalizes the agreement, promising to pay the woman 100 million won per month as planned.
The man demands Na Eun-jo execute her plans with him to prove he is a trustworthy person. Joo-hun vows to be thoroughly involved and relentlessly investigate until all of his doubts are cleared. The black-haired man asks if his conditions are acceptable, leaving Na Eun-jo staring back in silence. The pair drinks their coffee in the quiet, upscale dining area as a server walks past on. A wide shot captures the city skyline during a vivid sunset, transitioning the story to a memory. In a flashback, the original artist explains her love for dynamic sunsets with sharp contrasts and shadows. The long-haired woman expresses her desire to live a life as dynamic as a bold painting. Back in the present, Joo-hun wonders if she left the world dramatically because of that stated desire. An employee enters Joo-hyun's office, addressing him as Director Park as the man turns to face him. The employee hands over a requested file containing information on the background of the woman, Na Eun-jo.
Joo-hun questions the point of the report and asks for a summary instead of reading the file.
The assistant reports that there is no evidence of a connection between Lee Eun-jo and Na Eun-jo.
Joo-hun recalls Na Eun-jo's claim about learning painting 3 years ago as they drove together in the car. Narrative boxes emphasize the impossibility of no trace existing between the two women over 3 years.
Joo-hun finds it suspicious that the two women supposedly only met at a studio in Apgujeong.
The assistant reveals that Eun-jo hadn't visited that studio for a year, proving Na Eun-jo's claim false.
The man asks why she would lie using a dead person's name, reminding Joo-han of his intolerance for liars. Joo-hun confirms the letter is genuine based on handwriting analysis, leaving no room for doubt about its origin. Standing in the large office, the assistant notes that they are still missing a crucial piece of information. Joo-hun acknowledges the letter as a valid excuse to intervene while remaining curious about the women's connection. The black-haired man orders his assistant to dig deeper despite previous sweeps of CCTV and locations. The employee expresses that, as a hacking expert, going any further would constitute a criminal act.
Joo-hun tells him to look into the time before 3 years ago as he declines a drink.
The scene shifts to a past memory involving paint supplies and the struggle to contact Na Eun-jo. A wooden palette and brushes are shown against a dark artistic background representing the memory of painting.
The original artist wakes up in her studio, momentarily confused about where she is and her actions.
She realizes she is at the Apgujeong studio while sitting on a stool and focusing on her painting. Jo Hyun-soo enters the room to report on the specific matter the young lady had requested him to investigate.
The secretary informs her that Joo-han is living healthily and well in America without any reported accidents.
The woman pauses her painting, questioning the report that Joo-hyun is healthy and has a girlfriend.
Jo Hyun-soo confirms the news is true as the long-haired woman processes the information while seated.
The original artist is visibly shaken, unable to believe that Joo-hyun has already found another woman.
Secretary Jo confirms the identity of Song Hana, a fellow student at MIT, as Yoon-jo realizes she waited alone for 6 months.
The original artist sits in her studio, looking away with a heavy heart.
Secretary Jo apologizes and is promptly dismissed by the lady, who says she understands and he may leave.
As the secretary notes her bleeding hand, Yoon-jo stares intensely, her grip having physically manifested her inner turmoil. An abstract swirl of vibrant red and orange represents a feast of red accentuated by dark clouds.
The original artist turns away, flatly telling her secretary that it is fine and he should leave now.
Despite the man's hesitation, the woman firmly repeats that she wants to be alone in her studio. Seated at her desk, the artist faces a large portrait of a man in the dim light. A close-up of the painting reveals the sharp features of the man Yoon-jo is focused on.
Gazing at her hand, she reflects on a memory she had previously forgotten.
Lying in bed, the woman thinks about a worn-out memory from nearly 7 years ago. She recalls the specific smell of that day and Secretary Jo's expressions while the man looks on.
A narrative box describes her aching heart being recalled in perfect, vivid detail. Suffering from a high fever for 5 days, Na In-jo reflects on the painful side effects of her synchronization. Memories of being held by Joo-hyun surface as she thinks about her soul entering this new body. Reaching for her dead phone, the woman wonders how long she has been unconscious. Sudden, thunderous banging at the door startles the sick woman from her rest.
Wondering if the landlord has come to evict her, Na In-jo tells the intruder to get out.
With a pounding head, the woman staggers toward the front door, feeling every step is a struggle. Opening the door a crack, she weakly asks who has come to visit her. Na In-jo stumbles into the hallway where Kim Na-in is waiting to catch her. As synchronization is completed, Kim Na-in panics while supporting the unconscious woman in her arms.
Awakening in a hospital room, the woman notices the smell of alcohol and wonders who is watching her.
Park Ju-won stands silently at the foot of her bed as she slowly regains consciousness.
The black-haired man looks down at her with a steady, unreadable expression.
Realizing the man before her is indeed Park Ju-han, the woman processes her situation in disbelief. A close-up captures the woman's wide, golden eyes as she stares up in shock.
Sitting up abruptly, Na In-jo demands to know why the CEO is present in her hospital room. A narrative box marks the transition to 5 days ago as the flashback begins.
5 days ago, Joo-hyun treated her to dinner and drove her home after their hotel encounter.
Before she leaves the car, Joo-hyun asks if there is something specific she wants from him.
The CEO offers to pay the price for her standing in for another woman, referencing their past arrangement.
Na In-jo reflects on feeling abandoned while Joo-hyun continues to drive her through the night.
Despite the lack of strings, a part of the woman feels deeply disappointed by his transactional offer.
Narrative boxes explain that Joo-hyun dismissed their intimacy as a mere transaction because something felt different.
Na In-jo rejects the payment, stating she is done with that kind of relationship and acted on impulse.
She clarifies to the CEO that she won't be needy and has no romantic feelings for him. The woman tells the man she will share information about Lee In-jo, but insists they focus on work.
Back in the present, Na In-jo feels the awkwardness of meeting the man again after 5 days.
Kim Na-in rushes into the room, relieved to see that the woman is finally awake and okay.
Na-in explains that the CEO sent her to check on Yoon-jo after he couldn't reach her.
A single thought bubble reveals the woman is still deeply preoccupied with the image of Park Joo-hyun.
The assistant reports the doctor's diagnosis of fluid in the lungs, credited to the CEO's intervention.
Horrified, the woman realizes fluid in the lungs is a trace of Na Yoon-jo's original death by drowning.
She wonders if she has become a zombie by inhabiting the body of the deceased Na In-jo.
Staring at her reflection, she contemplates being a creature that shouldn't legally or physically be alive.
Despite Joo-hyun's orders for treatment, the woman insists she must work at the upcoming club party.
Her internal monologue emphasizes the urgency of tracking down Secretary Jo and pressuring her enemies.
Kim Na-in informs her that Yi-so has taken her job instead, much to Yoon-jo's confusion.
The assistant explains that Jung-hae refused to work if Yoon-jo was present, forcing the replacement.
Frustrated by the news, the brown-haired woman complains about the unfair rule and insists she must attend the party.
Na In-jo demands her belongings back, but the short-haired assistant refuses, citing the company's interests and a final decision.
Park Joo-hyun looks at his phone and reveals to the room that he has also received an invitation to the party.
Following her discharge, Na In-jo leaves the hospital with instructions to get ready, noting only 6 hours remain before the event.
Walking through the city, the woman worries about her lack of formal attire and appearing shabby as the director's partner. The woman stops in her tracks, her expression shifting to one of surprise as she looks toward the street.
A sleek black car is parked at the curb, and the black-haired man is waiting for her outside the vehicle.
Standing tall in his dark suit, Joo-hyun waits for the woman with a calm and poised demeanor. Recognizing him immediately, the brown-haired woman says Park Joo-hyun's name as she approaches him on the sidewalk.
Reflecting on her complicated history with her first love, she realizes that being in Na In-jo's body has simplified their connection.
Despite her resolve, she accepts the fluttering and aching of her heart as she looks at the man's stoic profile.
Joo-hyun reminds her of their meeting at the hotel, confirming that she will be attending the party as his official partner.
Startled and indignant, the woman reacts with shock when the topic of her current unrefined appearance is brought up.
The man turns toward his car, leading the way as the woman follows closely behind him.
Joo-hyun opens the passenger door and tells her to get in so they can begin her preparations for the evening.
They arrive at a high-end boutique named Habilleuse, where the man plans to have her groomed from head to toe.
Inside the luxurious shop, Joo-hyun instructs the staff to make her look her best regardless of the cost before leaving.
A professional stylist approaches from behind, catching the brown-haired woman off guard as the transformation process begins.
Now wearing a pink robe, Na In-jo stands in a private dressing area, looking uncertain about the extensive preparations. The woman asks if the initial stage is finished as she looks toward the doorway of the dressing room. Having changed into a tuxedo, Joo-hyun sits elegantly in a chair, explaining he came to ensure his partner is being prepped correctly.
Joo-hyun jokes about preventing her from picking an eccentric dress, while the woman admits Na In-jo's original taste was indeed strange.
Sitting across from each other at a small table, the man informs her that there is a serious matter he wishes to discuss.
Juhan pours coffee from an ornate pot, stating that he intends to get straight to the point of their conversation.
Looking at the woman's reflection in the dark liquid, the man asks if she truly believes Lee In-jo was murdered.
Over a visual of a bloodied hand, the woman looks back at him with a serious expression and answers with a firm yes.
The black-haired man asks for her evidence, prompting the woman to address him formally as the CEO.
Joo-hyun warns her that the letter alone won't stop the inheritance and that she needs much more solid evidence to succeed.
Agreeing with his assessment, the woman explains that she is attending the party specifically to search for the proof she needs.
She tells the man that there is one specific person at the event whose identity and actions she must absolutely confirm.
Na Eun-jo explains she is looking for someone with exact knowledge of Lee Eun-jo's movements on the day of her death.
She identifies the target as Chief Secretary Jo Hyun-soo, the man who personally placed the smartwatch on her wrist that day. Joo-hyun reacts with visible surprise, repeating the name of the secretary as he processes the woman's claim.
Narrative boxes reveal that Julian knows the man well, as he was the last person he saw before leaving the country.
In a memory, Secretary Jo stands over a packed bag, relaying the chairman's orders for the young man to leave Korea immediately.
The secretary coldly informs him that the chairman wishes to sever all ties between them following his departure. In the flashback, a desperate Joo-hyun begs the secretary to let him see Yoon-jo just one more time before he goes. Jo Hyun-soo remains unmoved, telling the young man that he and the lady walk entirely different paths in life. The secretary asks if he seriously believes a man of his status can stay with the daughter of Chairman Lee Won-gyu.
The man orders him to act according to his family's name, vowing to tell Yoon-jo that Juhan has already found another woman.
Joo-hyun falls to his knees in despair, remembering how the secretary used his father as a shield to break his heart.
Back in the present, the black-haired man reflects on the unexpected reappearance of a name he thought he'd never hear again.
Sitting at the table, the woman notes that she has been unable to find or contact Secretary Jo since her supposed death.
Joo-hyun expresses doubt that a mere secretary would be invited to an exclusive YR club party unless he held significant status.
The woman admits she isn't entirely sure of the man's presence, which is why she must attend the party to check.
She explains that she saw the name on the guest list and knows the host doesn't invite people without a specific reason.
Joo-hyun remains silent, internally questioning how a woman like Na Eun-jo is so familiar with the workings of high society.
The man asks if she is truly going to confirm the lead herself, and she confirms her intention to follow through.
Na Eun-jo stares back with a determined look, her eyes showing her resolve to uncover the truth at any cost.
Joo-hyun rests his chin on his hand, watching the woman with a thoughtful and intensely curious expression.
Joo-hyun instructs the boutique staff to bring in the selections while Yoon-jo waits at the table.
Stylists present exclusive designs, noting they haven't launched in Korea while complimenting the woman's clear skin.
Joo-hyun chooses the black dress, commanding the manager to take away all of the other options. As the boutique manager departs, the CEO states he is in a period of personal mourning.
2 sophisticated black gowns are displayed on mannequins, highlighting their elegant silhouettes and dark fabrics.
Eun-jo asks who will help her get ready if the manager is forced to leave.
Joo-hyun holds up a lace item, asking the woman if she needs help with her preparations.
The man offers his assistance for the dressing process, watching her reaction with a steady gaze.
Startled by the suggestion, the brown-haired woman clutches her robe and stares back in shock.
Joo-hyun hands her the garment, maintaining his neutral expression as the woman takes it from him.
He suggests they continue their talk while she changes, directing her toward the private dressing area.
Yoon-jo resolves to earn her full payment while adjusting her robe inside the dressing room.
The woman is caught off guard as someone abruptly pulls back the dressing room curtain.
Eun-jo demands an explanation for his intrusion, while Joo-hyun questions why she is suddenly acting embarrassed.
Joo-hyun tells her to wear the dress, ignoring the woman's visible blush and obvious discomfort. Looking back at him, the woman asks why he is staring with such an intense expression.
Joo-hyun grabs the woman's shoulders as the black garment falls to the floor between them.
The woman shouts the man's name as he holds her shoulders with a firm, urgent grip.
Joo-hyun demands an explanation for the butterfly mark on her shoulder, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Eun-jo realizes the mark is her own winged butterfly design, a motif central to her paintings.
Joo-hyun insists on an explanation, noting that the mark was not present 5 days ago. Addressing her by name, the man demands the truth about the mysterious appearance of the mark.
He asks if it is a tattoo and threatens to find the person who designed it.
Yoon-jo claims she designed the tattoo herself while panicking about how to hide the truth.
The woman insists she created the design and demands that the CEO leave the room immediately.
She pushes the man away, repeating her demand for him to get out of the dressing area.
Joo-hyun pulls the curtain shut, calling her Nabi and demanding she answer his question truthfully. A system notification confirms that synchronization is complete and the woman has settled into the body.
Staring at the butterfly mark in the mirror, the woman remains silent during the final transition. Joo-hyun reflects on her eyes, convinced that regardless of her name, she is Lee In-jo.
Eun-jo reflects on her sanity, admitting that the current situation actually makes her feel grateful.
A text-filled panel emphasizes that both characters are driven by their own forms of madness.
Eun-jo walks toward Joo-hyun in the black dress as he watches her from the table.
Standing in the elegant black gown, the woman prepares herself to face the upcoming party.
Joo-han approaches her with a stoic look, his gaze fixed intently on her transformed appearance.
The woman claims the butterfly is her way of mourning, resolving to maintain her lie.
Joo-han presents a jewelry box, warning her not to get the wrong idea about the gift.
The box contains a luxurious black choker featuring a large sparkling diamond at its center.
Joo-han tells her to turn around so he can assist her with the dress's zipper.
The man reaches out to move her hair aside, his fingers brushing against her neck.
A narrative box describes how the woman can feel the man's intense gaze on her skin.
Joo-han stands behind her, preparing to help with the dress while the woman remains tense. The man's hands are visible as he begins to carefully fasten the choker around her neck.
Joo-hyun remarks that the woman he knew would never be embarrassed by this level of touching.
Looking at her with suspicion, the man says her name while continuing to fasten the jewelry.
A thought bubble describes her past lack of modesty.
Joo-han continues to adjust the necklace, his focus entirely on the woman standing before him.
The man wonders why just showing the back of her neck is enough to make her flush. Eun-jo thinks it is because she likes him, while Joo-yeon continues to question her reactions.
Park Joo-hyun looks at the woman with a thoughtful and intensely curious expression.
Joo-yeon touches the woman's neck, asking if she truly dislikes his physical proximity.
Eun-jo realizes Joo-han senses her soul has changed even if he cannot explain it.
The brown-haired woman questions if Joo-hyun missed her or left her by force.
Touching her shoulder, the man's presence reinforces her commitment to achieving ultimate revenge.
Eun-jo believes a brief moment of comfort should be permitted despite her mission.
Showing him her shoulder, the woman allows the man to observe her butterfly mark.
Fastening her black dress, the CEO offers his support during her period of mourning.
Joo-hyun reveals the choker is a hidden camera designed to identify and record party guests.
The man commands her to remain quiet and avoid causing any trouble at the event.
The scene transitions to the grand party hall where numerous high society guests have gathered.
Entering the event, the brown-haired woman begins searching for the presence of Secretary Jo.
A woman with long red hair caught in the crowd draws the protagonist's immediate attention.
Watching Na-in, the woman mocks her for wearing her belongings while failing to match her.
Narrative text recalls Na-in as a kind Jeju girl encountered during volunteer work years ago.
Memories show Na-in as a struggling model attending an academy to find a regular career.
The protagonist admired how faithfully Na-in continued to volunteer despite her own personal hardships.
In a flashback, the lady invites Na-in to quit her academy and work exclusively for her. Eun-jo explains she hired the girl as a secretary to manage her paperwork and household.
Despite knowing about Na-in's secret affair with Jinwoo, Yin-jo initially felt only pity for her. The woman recalls being willing to let Na-in have her partner if it brought happiness.
A visual memory depicts the red-haired secretary sharing an intimate kiss with the woman's lover.
Eun-jo reflects on her past hatred for the man and her misplaced sympathy for her secretary.
The betrayal deepens as Eun-jo recalls discovering Na-in was secretly drugging her wine with pills.
Eun-jo admits the secretary's treachery hurt more than her partner's because of their bond.
Spotting Na-in in the present, the brown-haired woman decides she needs to find fresh air.
Seeking a moment of clarity, Eun-jo steps out onto the quiet, moonlit terrace of the venue.
Eun-jo overhears Chae Jong-hae gossiping, noting the woman's inability to change her malicious nature.
The short-haired woman mocks Na-in's failed career despite her former title as Miss Jeju.
Jung-hae insults Na-in's physical appearance, claiming her look is no longer trendy or attractive.
Listening from the shadows, the protagonist observes how Jung-hae betrays her friend by mocking her. The socialite reveals Na-in seduced a married man by aggressively pursuing him at the event.
Jung-hae explains Na-in targeted the man's wife only to learn the woman held the wealth.
Eun-jo realizes that Na-in's original motive for approaching her was centered around her husband, Jinwoo.
A hand suddenly grabs Eun-jo's arm as someone demands to know why she is there.
A black-haired woman named Yang Yi-so recognizes the protagonist and addresses her with shock.
Yi-so warns her to leave before Jung-hae spots her, but the protagonist refuses to move.
Eun-jo tells her companion to stay quiet and offers a meal in exchange for her assistance.
Jung-hae continues her gossip, detailing how the man's wife died after Na-in's failed seduction attempts.
Another guest asks for clarification about a specific location mentioned during the scandalous conversation. Smirking, the short-haired woman warns the others that further details could lead to legal consequences.
The protagonist ponders the meaning behind the specific location mentioned by the gossiping socialites.
Jung-hae notes that the man shows no interest in marriage so soon after his wife's passing.
The women agree that Na-in will likely be discarded and ruined if she pushes too hard.
Jung-hae suggests Na-in is desperate for pregnancy while pitying the late wife's squandered fortune.
Finding the conversation tedious, Yi-so announces her departure and walks away from the balcony area.
The brown-haired woman stares ahead with a stunned expression after hearing the group's cruel remarks.
Eun-jo wonders how long Na-in has been standing nearby listening to the insults directed at her. Internal narration confirms that the red-haired woman heard every word of the group's malicious gossip.
Na-in stands in the shadows, her face contorted with a mixture of rage and deep humiliation.
In a final memory, Na-in claims her lack of pride allows her to survive any loss.
Eun-jo reflects on Na-in's past grit and unshaken attitude as she approaches her in the present.
Staring at Na-in's face, Eun-jo realizes her secretary's previous admirable attitude was entirely fraudulent.
Eunjo continues walking while noting how Nayeon's real face is now visibly shaking with rage.
Nayeon acknowledges Eunjo, observing that the two of them are currently in similar circumstances.
Eunjo questions their supposed friendship while Nayeon demands to know her identity and if they met.
Eunjo confirms her identity and addresses Nayeon as a senior, revealing she knows who the secretary is.
Eunjo describes herself as an unsuccessful model while Nayeon reacts with confusion to being called senior.
Stepping closer, Eunjo asks Nayeon how one should react when others attempt to tear them down.
Eunjo advises using force and money, equating wealth with the power to crush one's enemies.
Nayeon listens in stunned silence to the brown-haired woman's cold and calculated advice on gaining power. Narration describes the desperate cycle of craving status only to be dragged back down after reaching it.
Eunjo points out Nayeon's relative wealth compared to Junghae, prompting Nayeon to ask how she knew.
Eunjo compares their souls through the red ruby, suggesting neither of them possesses an ordinary spirit. Eunjo encourages the red-haired woman to stop hiding and shrinking away from those who insult her.
In the party hall, a guest asks Juhan if he arrived at the event without a partner.
Juhan confirms he has a partner, declining the guest's offer to introduce him to other interested women.
Juhan notes that Vice Chairman Jinwoo appears to be the one attending the grand party alone today.
Jinwoo rejects any potential introductions, claiming he could never replace Eunjo with another woman at his side.
Juhan finds Jinwoo's public display of grief to be a disgusting and pathetic act of deception.
Juhan observes that Jinwoo must have been close to his wife, which Jinwoo confirms with a smile.
The socialite observes that Jinwoo is unusual for mourning his wealthy wife instead of celebrating her passing.
Jinwoo claims his marriage to Eunjo was born from a deep and tragic romantic connection.
Juhan finds it hard to believe such a clumsy man plotted murder and decides to play along. Juhan admits he planned to avoid Jinwoo and cancel his investment now that Eunjo is deceased. Seeing Jinwoo's earnest mourning, Juhan pretends to reconsider the investment, which Jinwoo claims would honor Eunjo. Juhan views Jinwoo as a vile man exploiting his dead wife's memory for financial gain.
Juhan points out that Eunjo's devotion to the company was rooted in her father's lifelong sacrifices.
Juhan asks if Jinwoo was unaware of this detail, causing the gray-haired man to look surprised. Jinwoo asks if she personally shared that information, noting that Juhan must have been very close.
Juhan confirms their past proximity, watching Jinwoo's reaction as he mentions how close they once were.
Juhan describes their bond as sibling-like, while Jinwoo inwardly scoffs at the obvious lie regarding their relationship.
Jinwoo suspects Eunjo never left him because her heart belonged to Julian, the man she prioritized.
Jinwoo's phone rings with a call from his lover, making him wonder why she is contacting him.
Jinwoo reflects on the invitation he provided, annoyed that the person is calling instead of being quiet. The gray-haired man checks his phone with a suspicious look, distracted from the conversation by the incoming call.
Jinwoo suddenly notices the brown-haired woman standing nearby and focuses his full attention on her.
He identifies her as Na Eunjo, remembering their previous encounter in the lobby of a law firm.
Jinwoo observes her strange aura, noting how her attempts to blend in only make her stand out. Finding her cute and reminiscent of his late wife, Jinwoo adjusts his tie and prepares to approach.
Eunjo remains focused on her search for Secretary Jo, noting his absence despite her careful observation.
Reviewing the guest list, Eunjo reflects on the shady and illegal dealings occurring throughout the trashy party.
A drunk man approaches Eunjo, who plans to use her choker camera to review the footage later.
Eunjo suddenly detects a familiar scent, her expression turning sharp as she recognizes the specific perfume.
Jinwoo greets Eunjo with a cheerful smile, announcing that the two of them have met once again.
A dark memory of Jinwoo murdering Eunjo for her inheritance overlaps with his present, smiling face.
Jinwoo asks why she looks pale and reminds her of their meeting at the Hanso law firm.
Addressing her by name, the man asks if she is Miss Na Eunjo while maintaining a pleasant expression.
Eunjo asks if he knows her, and Jinwoo acts offended that she would forget their previous interaction.
Staring at the man who killed her, Eunjo inwardly labels him a filthy bastard for his fake charm.
Jinwoo describes catching her when she nearly collapsed, while Eunjo resolves to never forget his actions.
Feeling the man's arm brush her, the woman recalls every disgusting detail of his presence while suppressing her urge to shove him away.
The woman feigns ignorance about their previous meeting while reflecting on the necessity of using Kang Jinwoo to uncover the truth.
The gray-haired man offers her drinks, which she inwardly finds absurd before declining so she can go find her partner. Grabbing her arm firmly, the gray-haired man insists that the woman should not be so dismissive of his social invitation.
Reacting with immediate hostility to the man's touch, the brown-haired woman demands that he take his hand off her.
A glass shatters on the floor as the gray-haired man's expression turns cold after his public rejection.
Narration describes the protagonist recognizing the specific anger of a man who has never been refused, suddenly facing a rejection.
With a look of rage, the gray-haired man begins to address the woman while gritting his teeth in frustration.
While the woman worries about causing trouble, guests identify Vice Chairman Kang Jinwoo and wonder about the identity of his companion.
Internal narration describes how scandals involving harassment and rumors repeatedly destroyed Na Eunjo's reputation during her previous career years.
Determined to avoid a scandal, the woman shouts that she is an acquaintance of Kim Na-in to divert the tension.
The brown-haired woman questions if senior Kim Na-in is in love with him, leaving the gray-haired man shocked and confused.
Narration notes that conspirators cannot separate because betrayal leads to ruin, as a memory shows Jin-woo and Na-in together. Playing a submissive role, the woman claims she would never dare pursue a man who belongs to her senior colleague.
A foot steps into the spilled liquid as a man's voice calls out to the protagonist by name across the room.
Reaching out to pull the brown-haired woman toward him, the black-haired man tells her to come to his side.
The black-haired man confronts the vice chairman, asking if his lack of a partner is due to his grief for his wife.
Faced with the black-haired man's public questioning of his loyalty to his dead wife, the gray-haired man stammers in disbelief.
The black-haired man warns the vice chairman to stay away from his partner and act in accordance with his public image.
The black-haired man and brown-haired woman stand together, maintaining a defiant stance against the stunned vice chairman.